4th, 2021 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. The first item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is attendance. Mr. DeLong.
Certainly, Mr. Jones.
Present.
Mr. Lake.
Present.
Mrs. Campins.
Present.
Mr. Mundy.
Present.
Mr. Wolf.
Present. Thank you, Mr. DeLong. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the July 7th, 2021 meeting minutes. Fellow board members, those are still in review, so they are not available for our approval. So we will see those again on our agenda for September 1st, I believe is the date. The next item on our agenda, actually, before we move on to continuance or withdrawal requests, I would make a note that we have allowed the continued use of standard mail. Is there a motion to approve, to waive our rules to allow for standard mail for notice?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. All right, that moves us on to item number 4 on our agenda, which is continuance or withdrawal requests. Are there any members, are there any people on our, petitioners on our agenda tonight who wish to seek a continuance or withdrawal? Please come forward. Are we aware that all of our petitioners participating in person tonight?
There's some participating virtually, but all the presenters
We'll be here.
will be here.
Very good. Okay. So seeing none, that moves us on to item number 5, continued business, which brings us to docket number 2021-13-SE, the Brickyard Solar LLC. Will the petitioner please come forward? See, now there's probably some interest. I would like to review the lay of the land and exactly where we stand. So this petition was continued from our last meeting. At that time, if you review our rules and procedures, we typically allow 15 minutes for petitioners, 15 minutes for remonstrators, 5 minutes for petitioners, and 5 minutes for remonstration. As we discussed last week, this is an important project and we sort of allowed that to exceed. So what I'm going to ask for tonight is that we move, instead of having the 5 minutes, we will allow the petitioner 20 minutes and we'll allow a remonstration of 20 minutes. Additionally, I will also open up for public comment so that those who are either for or against this particular project will have an opportunity to speak as well. With that, please state your name and address for the record.
Zach Melda, Juno Beach, Florida. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to continue this conversation on the Brickyard Solar Project. We'd like to just start by talking about some of the additional items that we provided since our last meeting, in particular the project support. We have sent along, and I believe that it was forwarded to you, the 57 letters of support. These were sent directly to the board members, and they have a very consistent theme with them. One is it's good for tax revenue. The second is a reduction of carbon fuels. And then third is great for the schools. I would like to pause right there because we do have some students that we were just made aware of have an opinion on this project. And I think that their testimony is of great importance for the board to hear. And since they have school tomorrow, I'm willing to give some of our time so that they can come up right now and give their testimony.
If you've got students that want to participate in local government, I'm all in.
Please.
So the way we work, this is a public hearing. So I'm glad you're participating. Thank you for showing up. If you would, just state your name and address. That way we can officially record who you are and that you participated.
Noel Michael, 937 Saddlebrook Drive. Akira Hall, 125 South Maxwell Court. Naomi Michael, 937 Saddlebrook Drive.
Thank you. And your thoughts on this petition?
Hi, my name is Noelle. This is Naomi, and this is Akira. We're high school students in Zionsville. And we would like to say a few reasons why the solar panels are important to us and why we believe we should support their installation in Zionsville. One reason the solar panels are important to us is because Brickyard solar panels would increase the funding to Zionsville community schools without adding more students. The value of homes in Zionsville directly correlates with the value of education the public school system provides. Therefore, more funding from the schools would improve the school system and in turn could benefit property values in the town. This solar panel project will approximately provide $50 million over the lifespan of the project, which could be used to improve roads, schools, and other services.
Another reason we support this project is because of the rise in renewable energy and the creation of potential STEM careers. According to the National Solar Job Census, by the Solar Foundation of Solar Industry creates more than any other sector in the United States. This project here in Union Township would create more than 200 jobs working with renewable energy. According to the International Energy Agency 2020 report, renewable energy is expected to grow by 50% and solar energy will be leading this.
We also believe that solar panels are important because they would be a step in the right direction to help improve our environment and slow the impacts of climate change. Climate change has in the past and will in the future affect Indiana. According to the Purdue Climate Change Research Center, Indiana can expect in the future increased heat waves, increased in both occurrences and intensity, as well as flooding, droughts, and degradation of air and water quality. Climate change is one of the biggest problems emerging in our world today, and many people agree with this. According to a study done by Indiana University, more than 77% of residents in our region of Indiana believe that climate change is a pressing issue. Our town also supports this issue, which was shown when the council and the mayor united to create a climate action plan that would allow Zionsville to double in size while keeping carbon emissions stable. It is because of the funding to our schools, the creation of jobs, and the benefit to our environment that we support the Brickyard Solar Panel Project. Thank you.
Thank you for participating. You did an excellent job conveying your thoughts.
Thank you. And just to continue, the reduction of carbon fuels. So this directly complements the climate action plan that was adopted by the town of Zionsville, which was written December 2020 and approved unanimously by the town council on February 16th, 2021. I love the quote on the front of this. Our town has the collective ability to take meaningful and immediate steps toward the changes that will protect our future. And if you look in here, the strategy 1.5 is advocating for local utility services to transition to renewable energy. So the Brickyard Solar Project, I think, is a great complement to this climate action plan that the town has already set forward. I know we're reviewing this project tonight, but there have been other government bodies that have actually reviewed and approved this project, and that is the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. They've looked at it from two different angles. One is from a project standpoint, and they say, okay, how is this project being developed, and can the developer do it? And if they can't, then the IURC has to exercise a jurisdiction over them. So conclusions of that is consistent with Indiana Code 1-8-2.5, this commission finds that they are declining to exercise jurisdiction over Brickyard Solar. This will facilitate moving forward with the construction of the proposed facility and add generating capacity in Indiana, benefiting the public utilities that may indirectly have access to the power produced, their customers, and the state of Indiana, as provided under Indiana Code 8-1-2.5-5. In addition, the petitioner, in this case, Brickyard Solar, has demonstrated that it has the technical, financial, and managerial capabilities to construct and operate the proposed facility, and also has shown that the wholesale market for electricity in Indiana and its market entry is reasonable. So this is a review by the IURC, declining jurisdiction over Brickyard Solar and declaring us a quasi-utility. And this is case number 45424, approved May 5th of 2021. Now, the next one that they looked at, the IRC is how the energy is actually being used. This power purchase agreement, how does this relate to the overall energy state of Indiana? So the conclusions of that, we find the evidence of record in this proceeding supports approval of the solar power purchase agreement and the proposed methodology of its cost recovery. The solar PPA's terms and costs are reasonable. They provide needed energy, diversifying the supply portfolio, provide environmental benefits, which again goes to that climate action plan, great compliment, and defend against fuel cost volatility. These attributes provide direct benefit to all stakeholders. So this is the IURC's case number 45403, approved January 27th of 2021, right about the time that approval for the climate action plan came out. Next, we have want to talk about safety of the project, and we've enlisted the help of UL, so Underwriters Laboratories, who tests everything from microwaves to dishwashers to solar panels, and are really considered the gold standard in the industry. And with us tonight is a representative who's a subject matter expert, joining us via Zoom. Is he on?
Yes, I am.
Good to go? All right, if you could provide your conclusions for the solar
Yes.
panels.
Yes. Hello. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. My name is John
John?
Doty. Yes. Can you hear me?
Not coming through.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Sure, we can come back. Because another point that we want to make is before we get to property values, I do want to touch on the landscaping plan that we were going back and forth about. We presented a landscaping plan, a double road hedge, and we understand and listen to the community understand the uniqueness in Zionsville. So what we have prepared to offer is two landowners that are non-participating within 400 feet of the project will be offered a payment equal to 10% of the assessed value of their home. That way they are able to screen however they like, or if they're fine with the view of the solar panels, they're able to do with it what they will. So again, our offer is a payment of 10% of the assessed value of their home. And we, of course, will pay for that assessment. Was it within 60 days?
Yeah, and it's in the conditions.
Yep.
There's the board. It's actually condition number 11. We tried to map out exactly how that would work. But that's in writing. It's been submitted to you. Thank you.
So on to property values. We have a representative from Cone Resnick with us this evening. Sorry, got to echo. Pat, if you want to come on up.
Sure.
So she has a lot of great information. And again, this is the piece that she has written is not an opinion piece. This is actual interviews from our tax assessors. So Pat, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pat McGar. I'm a real estate appraiser.
Would you please state your address for the record as well?
This is going to be challenging. Yeah, my address is 200 South Wacker Drive, Chicago, Illinois.
Why don't we hang on one second? Gotta love technology.
Hello, this is John Doty. Can you hear me now?
Okay, do you? Let's continue with. Okay.
Okay, all right, so should I just talk loud?
Well, we do want to record this for the record.
Okay. I'm Pat McGar. I'm an MAI, which is a member of the Appraisal Institute. That's the highest designation you can get as an appraiser.
Yeah, hang on one second. I'm sorry. And again, this is not reflective of the petitioner. No problem, John.
Hello, do you hear me now?
Hey, I work in IT. I've done it. It stinks.
Should I continue then?
Maybe now would be a good time to suggest that if anyone is uncomfortable, there's an overflow room upstairs.
But it's having audio issues as well.
But it's also having audio issues. So you can have a similar experience up there or down here, wherever you're more comfortable having this experience.
I have it all organized that way, but.
I think we said we're good.
We're good. Okay, I'm sorry. So I think you were just introducing yourself and explaining your credentials.
Yes. I'm an MAI, which is a member of the Appraisal Institute, the highest designation an appraiser can have. I am a counselor of real estate. Counselor of Real Estate is an international group of real estate specialists, not just valuation, but developers, finance, architects, landscapers, everybody that has anything to do with development. It is by invitation only. The third credential I have is I'm a fellow of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. On a global basis, they refer to surveyors are what we refer to as appraisers. It allows me to appraise real estate anywhere in the world. I am the national practice leader for Cohen Resnick, one of the top 10 accounting firms in the United States. I am the practice leader for the valuation practice, which is not only real estate, but business, machinery and equipment, debt, derivatives. We value everything. So that's a little bit about my background. My niche specialty over the past 30 years has been property value impact studies. I have studied all types of concerns for detrimental conditions and have evaluated whether they have positive, negative, or neutral effects on adjacent property values. Let's see, up here on the screen, if you can see, the methodology that I use is put forth by the Appraisal Institute in their textbook, Real Estate Damages, written by Dr. Randy Bell. We are told one of the methods, the most successful method in studying whether properties adjacent have been influenced by property values is to do a matched pair analysis. And in this type of specific matched pair analysis, it is an analysis of a target group, which is an area physically contiguous or adjacent to what you're studying. And then you do the same with sales in a control group, which are as similar as possible, but physically removed from any influence. Of this case would be a solar farm influence. We then break that data down to a unit of comparison. Generally for homes, it's price per square foot of living area. For farmland, it's price per acre. And when we compare those two data sets, if they are consistent with one another and they're not showing any measurable difference, it's inferred that there's no negative influence being caused by the adjacent use. If there is a measurable and significant difference, it will be demonstrated by the data. And over my 30 years of doing this, I'm going to tell you that I've seen things that negatively influence property values. I've seen things that, and especially residential property values, that positively impact them. I can tell you that things that negatively impact property values seem to have one consistency, and that's that they physically damage property. I've seen levees that had to be built to address flooding of homes in a subdivision where half flooded and the other half didn't. And putting in a levy to cure that, and then going back 5 years later to see the difference and seeing properties that were selling for $50,000 below what the rest of the subdivision was, and turning over every 18 to 24 months because people didn't want to live there. Within 5 years, their values of their homes popped right up and matched the rest of the subdivision. I've also seen quarries, limestone quarries that have blasting, because they can cause cracks in your foundations, windows aren't plumbed, things fall off, physical things that impact property. Those are the things that I consistently see negatively impact property values. What is the thing that most positively impacts residential property values? And I've actually studied this. Being in a highly rated school district. Being in a highly rated school district will have a bigger impact on residential property values than just about anything else. The number one things highly rated school districts all have in common is that they're well-funded. And I'm seeing a consistent theme here with the comments and what the girls came up and talked about. That's something that should be a consideration. With regards to a solar use, this is the type of use that not only doesn't address the revenue being generated by taxes, but it doesn't generate more students or infrastructure burdens, roads. It doesn't impact police and fire, all the things that normally come with a cost associated with getting that benefit. This type of use doesn't have that. So in my study here, I looked at 6 existing solar farms. I tried to stay in the Midwest. I looked at several in Indiana, one in Illinois, Michigan, and then also one in Minnesota.
Can you clarify something for the record for us? Did any of those have a similar home value, similar median income, or similar population to Zionsville?
All right, so let me switch to the next one. There you go. Similar, yes. I mean, well, for example, similar with regards to the properties that I'm studying. I was not engaged to study this specific site.
Okay.
I have not, that was not part of what I was
So you
charged
don't-
with.
So you didn't look at how this solar farm would affect this community. You looked at how solar farms generally affect communities as a whole.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So
And,
you're-
and price points fairly consistent. And I can get into that once I get through.
Now that-
I would
that-
encourage you to, we are on a time limit, so
Yeah.
keep moving forward, please.
Okay. So with that, I've got the 6 studies that I've done here, each breaking them down. Indy Solar is just outside of Indianapolis. That was a really good solar farm for us to study because it's adjacent to a starter subdivision. And in a starter subdivision, the reason why that's relevant is there's a lot of sales. So there's information, there's a lot of data for us to research and compare. And when we did that, we did it over 2 different periods of time and compared the control and the target areas. When we did that, I don't know that you can see this because this is so small, and I for sure can't see it with my glasses. What you're showing is that the difference in unit prices were generally 0 to 2% in positive. There was no negative influence on it. We saw the same thing with the Portage Solar Farm, the Franklin Solar Farm. These are all in Indiana. Again, reflecting no impact. The Grand Ridge Solar Farm, again, reflecting no damage at all. North Star, now North Star Solar is a significant study for us because it was a 100 megawatt facility on 1,000 acres. And in that study, we were able to look at not only control sales and target sales. We interviewed the brokers that sold all those properties. We talked to the developer of the solar farm himself. And in that study, there was about a half a dozen houses in the middle of a 100 megawatt facility that were surrounded on 4 sides by solar panels. He acquired all of those houses to use because he thought he was going to expand into it. And at the end, when they finished building it, he decided to sell those houses. And each one of those houses sold at its market value, higher than its appraised value, and sold within the 2-month period, which was a normal marketing period. We have all this information in the formal report. But we interviewed brokers of all of the houses going around. None of them could identify any concern from potential buyers with regards to concerns about the solar farm. They had no comments. They all sold in typical marketing periods. They all sold at market rates. We have not been able to, in any of the studies that we've done, determine any negative influence in marketing periods and sale prices. And in addition to that, in testifying to so many boards, we've had a board ask us to do a before and after analysis. And we were able to do that in 2 of our studies where we could study homes adjacent and the control, target and control, for 5-6 years prior to construction, the period during construction, and then the 5 years since construction and since it's been operation. And again, we match that up against the federal housing index so that it accounts for the current economy. And the 2 lines for the control and the target and the home index follow the same pattern going up and down, reflecting that there's no impact. There was a down pattern because the bubble. So when the bubble went down, property values overall went down, but then they all went back up. So we haven't been able to determine any negative influence on property values in the studies that we've done. In addition to that,
And probably the time to pause. We're gonna run out of time.
oh,
One question about that information you just provided. On the previous slide, it was price per unit. What is the unit? Is that square footage?
Yes.
Thank you.
Square foot. And this is just the summary from the prior report that led up to it. So I'm trying to do this without going through all of the individual studies. We've talked to all the assessors in Indiana that have solar farms in their communities that they are doing valuations adjacent to them. All of their names are identified here. None of them have seen any negative influence on property values. The assessor for Chiswago County, which is the large solar farm that we're talking about, the 100 megawatt, he did his own study. And 3 years after the facility was built, he did not find any measurable impact on property values. And in addition to doing my own work, my own research, and my own interviews, the next step we take is look at published reports and studies that have been done. And real quickly, I want to finish off. I'm sure you've seen the property value impact study done in Rhode Island and Maine. I know the person who wrote this study. We've talked many times during the process of him preparing this report. It is still being vetted by in peer review. But it's relevant to note that he identifies very quickly there's a difference between suburban, urban areas and rural areas. He identifies rural areas as having a population of 850 people per square mile. 850 people per square mile and below is rural. In his report, he specifically states, taken together, these results suggest, let me get up here. Yeah, suggests that the effect on rural areas is effectively zero, statistically insignificant, and that the negative externalities of solar arrays are only occurring in non-rural areas. Boone County's population per square mile is 164. Union Township is 94 people per square mile. The largest city in the county, Zionsville, is 421 people per square mile. So this effectively is considered to be based on the study performed by the University of Rhode Island, is that this area, given its density, not only will have zero impacts caused by the solar farm, but it would radiate out into the larger area, including the township and the county. I think that it's relevant to note with regards to a question previously, Chisago, Minnesota is the largest solar farm that we were able to study in the Midwest. It's just because it's the only one. And that property has a population of about 140 people per mile, both very, very consistent in size and density to Boone County. One's 142 square miles, one's 123 square miles. The median household income in Boone County is just around $73,000 for this year. In Chisago, it's 84,000 household income. So they're very consistent and similar. Now in Minnesota, yes, you are seeing houses that sell in that. Generally in Indiana, we're looking at that 200.
Could you repeat that, please, with the median income?
It was for Boone County.
Boone County and for the Minnesota?
Sure. The 2021 median household income in Boone County is $72,972. And in Chisago County, it is $84,537.
Okay, thank you. That's not for Zionsville, that's for Boone County.
It's Boone County, that's correct.
Thank you.
And
The quick Google says that the median household income in Zionsville was 137,000. I'm not sure if that's
For
right.
2019.
Yes.
okay.
Again, I would encourage you to keep moving forward. We are running close on time.
In Chisago County, the houses in that area surrounding that area were in the $200,000 to $450,000 range. That was consistent with a number of the solar farms that we looked at in Indiana. So price points were considered. All right, I guess I should wrap that up because I know it's got to be abbreviated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
John, are you on?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, by all means, please take us through your study of solar panels.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening, and I'm sorry I'm unable to be there in person tonight. My name is John Doty, D-O-T-Y. I am a solar engineer with UL Renewables Group. My address is Osgood Hill Road in Westford, Vermont. UL, as many of you know, is a fire safety and electrical safety company. Many of your electrical appliances in your house, including dishwashers and coffee pots, have been certified to a UL standard, which shows that the equipment, when used under typical normal conditions, will operate safely, and in the event that they fail, will fail in a safe condition and not cause a fire. UL also could create standards for industrial equipment and generation equipment, including all of the equipment that is used in a typical solar plant. There are standards for the photovoltaic modules, for the inverters, for the wire that's used within the plants, the combiner boxes, and everything. In fact, the National Electric Code specifically states that all equipment used in a solar plant and used in any electrical installation in the United States must have a UL certification. It doesn't have to be certified and tested by UL. It has to be certified by any nationally recognized testing laboratory, of which there's probably about a dozen such companies within the US. All of these requirements help to ensure that our PV plants are safe. But safety extends beyond just making sure the equipment is safe. Safety for a photovoltaic plant starts in the design phase. In many cases, the designers will work with local fire officials to ensure that access roads are sufficient for emergency vehicles. They will bring first responders on site to give them an opportunity to ask questions and see the plant when it's in a normal operating state. This is all done before the final project design has been completed. That way, if there are any concerns or issues, they can be addressed during the final design phase of the project. Furthermore, for the plant safety, groups like UL Project Renewables, UL Renewable Project Services will be hired as an independent engineer. What we will do is we will review all of the equipment that's being used. We'll review the contracts, the environmental impact statements, the safety procedures, the operation and maintenance procedures, everything that is required to build the plant and safely operate the plant, and provided a large report that presents the plant characteristics and our opinions of the plant safety that is then used by the developer and the finance groups to obtain financing and to build the project. We're also involved in regular plant inspections during construction to ensure that the equipment that is being installed was what was included in the design, and that the installation by the contractor is done according to generally accepted good practices, good installation practices, that the project is installed in a safe manner, and that the project will function safely. So those are all done beforehand and during the construction. During the operation of the plant, it is vitally important that the operator of the plant operate and maintain the plant, not only because an unmaintained plant is not operating as efficiently as it can, but also because an unmaintained plant is an unsafe plant and can cause issues. Several of the things that are done on a regular basis are vegetation management. It's important both for a plant performance standpoint and for a safety standpoint to remove vegetation from around the modules. This is typically done by mechanical removal with string trimmers or standard lawnmowers, or in the initial design and installation of the plant by planting low-growing local vegetation. Many of the popular options now are to plant pollinator-friendly plants under the PV modules, which encourages bees and butterflies to nest in the area, as well as growing local native vegetation that grows to a low height and requires very minimal vegetation management. In addition, all plant workers are trained when the National Electric Safety Code, as well as the National Standard for Electrical Safety in the Workplace. They're all considered to be qualified electrical workers, and most, in fact, are journeyman electricians that have been trained by the local unions in safe electrical practices. As far as fire safety at the plant, as I indicated at the start, it's important, and most developers do involve the local first responders in the design phase to get their input on turning radiuses and access for vehicles, as well as to provide training opportunities for the first responders in the event, in the highly unlikely event that an incident occurs at the plant. Keeping the plant safe during its full life includes designing the project according to the code requirements and industry standards, installing appropriately rated equipment. You don't want to install equipment that is not going to work well in those conditions. Installing appropriate warning labels to identify areas where hazards exist. Ensuring all the equipment that's installed is used appropriately, that it has the appropriate UL listings, to lay out the PV plant to allow access to all areas of the plant for operations and maintenance, as well as for first responders. All plants have data management and data acquisition systems installed. This allows plant operators to monitor the entire plant at one time. As you know, these are large plants and cover a large amount of area, and the data acquisition system monitors all the components within the plant from a central operations center that's typically staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That way, if an issue were to occur, the network operations center can dispatch technicians to the site to mitigate any issues that occur. And it's important, and the developers will continue to develop and maintain appropriate system documentation on site, system signage, and allow first responders on site for regular training activities, as well as fire inspections. It's important to keep the first responders involved and up to date on any changes within the plant. That's pretty much all I have to say. I have provided NextEra with, and I think they have provided you with several studies and reports that have been created by both UL as well as the International Energy Agency on various methodologies for fighting fires. One of the things that I learned when I was teaching fire safety on a PV systems, which I did for New York State for approximately 10 years, is that the firefighters are very excited to learn about these systems. They are concerned, but it's a new technology. And as their training has progressed, they become more and more comfortable working around these projects. It's important to note that training is important for first responders. They're trained how to deal with automobile crashes. They're trained how to deal with fires in gas stations, both of which I would claim can be more dangerous than a fire in a photovoltaic system. So open lines of communication and training opportunities, and just keeping up to date with the latest issues and latest firefighting techniques is always a good way to minimize and mitigate any fire risks on a PV plant.
John, can you really quick comment on your firsthand experience with these systems dealing with a Category 5 hurricane?
Yeah, sure. Back in 2017, we were hired by several clients to visit sites in the Caribbean shortly after the 2 Category 5 hurricanes struck the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. I've been involved in restoration of several projects down there, as well as the development of new best practices guidelines for designing and maintaining systems. The project that I was involved in most recently was on St. Croix. It had been hit by both Hurricane Maria and the one that had hit the island about 2 weeks before, which I cannot remember the name. The island suffered catastrophic damage. The PV system that I was involved with had been installed according to good standards, had been well maintained. It had experienced some damage, mostly due to the racking system flexing. It caused modules to crack. Some of the inverters were damaged due to water infiltration, but that's a whole different issue. But in general, we were able to get the project back online within about 6 weeks with minimal damage and minimal repair requirements. Like I said, there was module damage, but most of the module damage was due to debris that was flying into the project, and very little debris had exited the project. The buffers around the plant were sufficient to keep anything within the fence line, and none of the neighbors had reported any damage from photovoltaic equipment.
Thank you. Even though we don't expect any Category 5 hurricanes here in Zionsville, these systems are built to last. Thank you,
So
John.
they are designed, the trackers and the mounting systems are all designed to withstand the wind loads as required by the local building codes. So when the project gets built in Zionsville and Boone County, the system designers will use the local wind design speeds as well as snow loads and seismic loads to design appropriate mounting systems to keep the modules in place.
We're doing on time, Mr. Chairman.
Real close.
All right, I'll just wrap it up. And so we understand that we have a lot of work to do, especially with the Area Planning Commission and the development standard that we need to work with them on. But we cannot even get to that step without the support of this BZA allowing us to use the land. You've heard from the students. I think that this project is directly in line with the climate action plan that the town has adopted. The IURC has approved this project, both from an energy standpoint and from a developer standpoint. You've heard from UL talking about safety. You have the reports there to review. And we've seen support in the community, and you have those letters of support out there. And lastly, we meet all findings of fact. And if Mary, probably not right now, but is glad to go over all of those with you. So thank you for your time tonight. And we hope to continue down this journey with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner at this time?
Oh, wait.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is if there's any members of our public, we're going to divide this up. So now we're going to open up for public comment again, and per our rules procedures. But to keep it organized, I would ask that if there's any members of our public who are in favor of this project, and you can also be online, so we need to ask for those members who are online, please come forward, state your name and address, and please share your thoughts on why you're in favor of this project. If you are not in favor of this project, please be patient. You'll have an opportunity to speak in a few moments, okay?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I should have done this earlier. I apologize. As always, full house, lots of conversation. If you could be as concise as possible, and try not to be repetitive. And you cannot be repetitive because you're our first starter. So go ahead.
Ow, that's lucky.
Name it.
My name is Faith Snodgrass, 605 Morningside Drive. I'm here as an educator. The last 10 years of my career is in education for sustainability, working for the UN, the US Department of State, and school districts around the country. More importantly, I'm here as a mother, a grandmother, and a resident. The economic benefits we've heard about, so I probably won't go into as deeply. I did work for the Zionsville school system and participated in the two efforts to get referendums passed to have enough funding to adequately maintain the standards that we're known for. That's just been since 2015. Having the Brickyard Solar Project would contribute millions of dollars without adding more students and buses and resources to our school. With the changing world and it's increasingly complex, schools need to do a lot to change their pedagogies, curriculums, and that kind of thing. And these resources would allow our schools to do what they need to do and maintain those wonderfully high standards. With the vast increase in the number of housing developments, oftentimes there's new students sitting in classrooms and the tax dollars from property taxes that follow them don't come for a year or two later, which puts stresses on the system. As you've also already heard, there is a great deal of data from the Brookings Institute that on the average, housing costs are nearly 2.5 times higher near high scoring public school districts than near low scoring districts. And every dollar spent on public schools in a community increase home values by $20 in comparison. The second reason I'm in support of the project is the preservation of farmland. there will never be more land. According to the American Farmland Trust, we lose 3 acres of farmland a minute. One doesn't have to drive very far to witness all the new housing developments that used to be farms in Zionsville, Whitestown, and Lebanon. Just 9 new subdivisions, and I'm not sure I even have a complete number in just the last 5 to 6 years. The Hinkey Group, who continues to develop the Holiday Farm, who I must say had a rare high-quality forest with a host of native plants and animals, has recently purchased hundreds of acres both south and north of Lebanon that will effectively increase the population of Lebanon twofold, so it will double. What happens when big, subdivisions go in with their golf courses is other subdivisions want to be nearby to benefit from that, the elevated value, and then comes along the strip malls, gas stations, and other things to support this increase in population. Once that kind of development goes into a farmland, it can never be returned for agricultural purposes. The benefits of a solar panel is it can be removed and the ground can be returned once again to agricultural purposes. There's a wonderful Yale study that shows, and the gentleman just previously mentioned this, by adding native plants to these installation, it will increase crop yields, benefiting neighboring farms. It also has additional benefits of reducing carbon, of course, by avoiding emissions, savings in reduced soil erosion, and the value of additional groundwater recharge. The third out of my 5 reasons is the ability for the project to reduce greenhouse gases, or GHG. And again, we've heard that the town has already made impressive progress on its commitment to maintain the levels, but we're going to have to take action quickly. The climate change that is going on, I think the earth is screaming for our attention, from fires, floods, record droughts, violent storms, and central Indiana is not exempt from climate change. Participating in the move to renewable energy is not only good for Zionsville, but for the state and far beyond. The 4th reason is contamination from coal plants. The air quality in Indianapolis is the 13th worst in the country. We have 30 coal plants and 2 of the top 20 most toxic plants. Our utility company, Duke Energy, plans to continue using coal plants. The recent milky skies that we've seen in the last week as a result of Western fires is a visual reminder of how pollutants from coal plant air and the toxic particles in it continually travel over our homes. Solar energy does not pollute the air that we breathe. While no energy source is perfect, there's a 105-page study by the Public Interest Energy Research Program that shows that there are risks of leaching. This was mentioned at the last meeting, leaching of trace materials from modules during manufacturing of the solar panels, and if they're not properly recycled, but not during the functioning of the finished panels. In talking with a staff member of the very large solar installation by the Indianapolis airport, because their panels were built with the expectation of hail and other weather events, they reported that there has not been breakage or any seepage of chemicals into the soil. And as evidence of the interest in solar installations, a January 19th Indianapolis Star article reported that just a small part of the airport solar installation was purchased by another US solar company for $24 million. But finally, the most important reason that I support the use and development of renewable energy is because of our children. Our children are the town's and the country's greatest resource. Students as young as elementary children, not only around Zionsville, but around the globe that I work with, understand that there are serious environmental problems and they're facing a very uncertain future. It turns out humans are very effective at destroying the environment. I'm fortunate to work with bright and passionate students here in Zionsville, and you heard from several of them this evening. There were others that wanted to come, but with the start of the school year and sports tryouts, they weren't able to join us tonight, but they're also very motivated to try to make change. Of all the wicked problems facing us, we know how to create a sustainable future. So rather than seeking the courage to fight climate change and the changes necessary to address it, we need to find the courage to see and act on the common sense solutions, such as renewable energy, that are right in front of us. Ensuring that future generations can live happy, meaningful lives should collectively be our highest priority. In conclusion, on behalf of my children, your children, and our neighbors' children, I urge you to approve the Brickyard Solar Project. So the next time one of our residents says, Mrs. Snodgrass, why aren't grown-ups doing more to give us back our future? I can answer, we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leslie Bear. My address is 11553 Clarkston Road in Zionsville. I've never been to one of these meetings before, and I'm sorry I don't have any prepared remarks. So just from my experience, I'm coming straight from Indianapolis Hiking Club today, meets 4:30 in Zionsville for a hike every Wednesday. And 5 of the 6 members were vocally supportive of the solar panel project. The other guy's just quiet and doesn't ever say much at all, so I don't know his feelings on it. I think that it's a lot easier to, and more people tend to come to this type of meeting if they are in opposition. And I don't have that sort of anger or disdain that I'm seeing around the room right now by some of the people here. I will just say that I returned from Washington State recently, the Olympic Peninsula, and did backpacking in Olympic National Park and also visited Mount Rainier. And we were in Hoh Rainforest, and it's dried up. Our trip, luckily, was scheduled for after their heat wave broke. So we weren't there during the 100 to 105 degree days that they were experiencing in Seattle and on the Olympic Peninsula. But I can tell you, I saw the effects of that. They have a drought, and it was not very rainforest looking. It was dried up. There was areas of burnt plants, and I'm not here to argue climate change, but I will say that the bar seems flipped for me. So it seems very difficult to get anything passed that is environmentally beneficial, whereas we're able to accept all sorts of things that benefit the fossil fuel industry. So pipeline through Austin Oaks and Coventry Ridge, which is sure, bring it on. We're the first house off of Michigan, can't open the windows because soot will settle and dust more than ever. Fine, that's fine. Almond farmers in California have to share bees and cart their bees around because we're killing bees. That's fine, but I still spray Roundup on my yard because I have a few weeds. Building another plastics plant in Louisiana in Cancer Alley near New Orleans. That's been incredibly easy to do. It's been very hard to fight building an additional plastics plant. But for something like solar, it has to be perfect. We get these air pollution warnings all the time about the air quality in Zionsville and the particulate matter. And because my daughter has asthma, I get those text message warnings. That's fine. Bring it on, but no solar panels to reduce, that's the problem, is the, little bit of pollution during production. I don't understand that kind of mentality. Well, that's not going to help enough. That's our excuse for not doing something that's environmentally responsible. Or that might be a little bit bad in this way, so we're not even going to try to make an improvement. And Zionsville does have a climate action plan, and I would be proud to live in a community that flips that bar and makes it so that we do the responsible thing and add another option, which is more solar power to reduce carbon.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Keith Bell. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Clark, Quinn, Moses, and Gron in Indianapolis. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Artman family who are supportive of the project. And out of respect for the board's time and other members who want to come up here and speak to you tonight, I have prepared some written comments, make it a little bit easier to expedite matters. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I'd like to distribute those.
We can share too. Thank you.
And in recognition that some of these comments have been touched upon earlier this evening, I won't read this entire statement, but I do want to provide a little bit of background. I don't typically appear before these types of boards in these types of matters. My background is more dealing with utilities. I've been in the utility regulatory business for over 30 years now, both with regard to rate making as well as plant siting. I even go back to the days when we were fighting over siting new coal plants. So it's kind of refreshing to see this change in the industry that's occurring. As I said, I'm here on behalf of the Artman family, who obviously are supportive of this project. They have land that's right at the center of the project. But they also have taken quite a bit of time to research solar energy and look at this project in detail. And I would refer you to some of our written comments to go into a bit more detail on that and what they've done. They didn't go into this lightly. They took their time. They've been in this community as a family for over 150 years. This is near and dear to their hearts. Not just the project, but the land that some of this project is going to sit on. One of the things that they've looked at, that we've looked at, is the town council's adoption of the climate action plan. That was mentioned earlier. I won't go into that in detail, but I did provide a copy of that resolution that was adopted earlier this year. We submit that climate action plan significantly supports this idea of having solar here in Union Township. I've also provided some information, and I know we've had an expert speak to this in detail earlier tonight about property values, but there was a SEIA analysis that was done. There's a fact sheet attached to those written comments that shows two studies that they looked at as recently as 2019 here in Indiana and Illinois, more appropriate to compare to this project, showed not just that there was no impact, but in those two studies, as you'll see in the comments, there was actually a 2% increase in value because of the solar farm being close by. The final thing I just want to touch on briefly is I know there's been some concerns raised about decommissioning and what will happen at the end of this project's life, and whether or not the county will be stuck with paying for the cleanup of that. I mentioned in the comments that we provided tonight, the IURC, an area near and dear to my heart, has previously reviewed this project, and they are requiring, while they have not exercised complete authority, I will correct the earlier speaker about on that issue. They did retain some jurisdiction over this project. There's some oversight still by the IRC. One of the requirements, as you'll see in the comments, I quoted paragraph 8 of that May 5th order. I've also provided each of the members here with a copy of that order at the end of our comments, requires that there is essentially a remediation plan put in place and funds set aside to make sure that the land is returned to the condition it's in now. I'm not saying the IRC, well, it certainly helps, but I believe the petitioner here, Brickyard Solar, has proposed a decommissioning plan. And so I think a lot of those concerns should be greatly alleviated. I'm sure this group or the Planning Commission can put further requirements on that, but I don't see that as an issue. And certainly the IRC is going to keep track of that issue as well going forward with this utility scale project. Again, out of respect for some of the other folks that want to come up and speak tonight, I'll leave it with that. Encourage you to review those comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can answer with regard to the utility process. Otherwise, just want to note that the Hartmans are obviously fully supportive of this plan. Believe it would be good for the community.
I would like one little bit of clarity on the decommissioning issue. One of the concerns, I'll bring it up later, and I'll bring it up now. So is there an agreement between the Artmans, the property owner, and the solar firm regarding the decommissioning, the cost of the decommissioning?
It is contractually part of the lease.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say there's 3 levels of protection. There's contractually through the leases with the landowners. There's the IURC oversight of that issue, and then there's this board's ability to.
So the portion that's included within the lease, is that the same fund that we are seeing here, or is there a separate fund?
I think they're supposed to be the same fund, as long as it's provided. I don't think there's going to be 2 separate funds, but
So who bears the cost of determining if the fund is sufficient for the decommissioning if it is needed?
Okay, so may I answer that, Mr. Jones?
Sure.
Again, for the record, my name is Mary Soliday. I'm the project attorney based in Indianapolis. So we have presented to the case file a draft decommissioning document. It's a unilateral document. The town doesn't have to sign it. We will sign it. The board, I think we say in our proposed conditions, makes approval and signature of that document a condition of approval. What it provides for is that a third-party engineer determines the decommissioning cost at the time of improvement location permit. And then throughout the life of the project, that bond, which by the way is adjusted, it's third-party security bond is provided. Every 5 years, it's reevaluated. And there's notice provided to the town so that the bond essentially never lapses. If the town has any concerns that the bond amount isn't correct, it can make a claim. And so this process has been established. I can tell you this document has been reviewed by a number of attorneys around the state with other solar projects and other big law firms. This has been signed off on in the sense that it's a best practice document to ensure that the town taxpayers, area residents, landowners are never on the hook for the decommissioning costs.
Chairman Wolf, it's okay if I kind of jump around for a minute? Not physically, but you know.
Yeah, I would prefer if you did not physically jump around, but yes.
All right.
Well, hang on a second. Who would you like to address?
These 2.
Is it regarding the decommissioning plan?
Correct.
Okay, then yes, please proceed.
Okay, my concern with the decommissioning plan is for some reason the town of Zionsville is listed in the middle of it. And I'm not familiar with any other situation where we don't own the land. Why are we involved in both, 1, determining the amount of monies that will be in the fund, 2, somehow managing that the letter of credit bond or whatever will be maintained. 3, I'm not particularly happy with that while there is a gross amount stated, it starts out at only 25% of that amount for the first 5 years and then supposed to ratchet up, which then again puts a burden on the town to make sure that's being maintained. And then finally, like I said, you've put the town in this kind of situation where if the landowners determine that the town has agreed to an amount of money that is insufficient to clean up the land at some point, who makes up the difference? So once again, I as much as I appreciate there's this decommissioning plan that's been vetted by everybody, between terms about the limited amount of money they actually have to put into it, 2, that we have to determine what that amount is and hold them to it, and then 3, there's a lot of language in the back that they can basically change ownership of the company of the solar. How do I describe that? The company can change ownership. And once again, we're not really allowed to kind of get in the middle of that. But then again, we're put back in the situation of making sure that whoever the new owners are, in whatever form that they have the funds to actually continue to pay for it. So I just don't quite get why we're in the middle of the town of Zionsville. I do understand why we want to make sure it's there. And I think we ought to have the say on it. And while we're at it, same thing goes for the insurance. I think last time we asked to find out just what kind of insurance they're going to have. Same thing, we got a paragraph saying it'll be a swell group of guys that'll provide insurance. Not a whole lot of detail. So how do you protect the town of Zionsville but keep us out of the middle?
Well, I can just tell you about my personal experience. In the last 2.5 years, I've been to, I'd say 8 Indiana counties who have considered this document, this decommissioning document. Every one of those county commissioner groups, county attorneys have insisted on a decommissioning agreement that looks very similar to this. By the way, full decommissioning security is provided at year 10. The reason, and Zach can address this, he just provided the same document over in Jasper County, Indiana, is that there's actually, the salvage value is worth more than the cost of decommission in the first 10 years. We can get into those details. I guess I would suggest, with all respect, Mr. Jones, that have your attorney comment on this. We are happy to pay for that legal review. We're happy to have a couple different law firms look at this. The point is that I will, before, under oath before you today, tell you that this document has been vetted by a number of law firms in the state and a number of communities, and has been deemed to be satisfactory. So I don't know what else to say about it, other than I stand by it.
Thank you, Ms. Soliday. Thank you, Mr. Bell. So again, we're looking for members of our public who are in favor of the petition. Come forward, state your name and address, please.
My name's Matt Out. I live 6800 block of East 32. I really can't say more than the first lady did, other than the fact that the question I have for everybody in this room is, the electricity we're using today, does anybody really know where it's coming from? Because where it's coming from is somebody's backyard. And if everybody had said what I'm hearing tonight and what I heard a month ago, not in our backyard, we'd all be living back 100 years ago with nothing. So Zionsville, whether you like it or not, is going to be leading. We have our choice of which way we're leading. We can lead pro-solar and do what we can for the environment and climate change, or we can say, the heck with it. Let's burn up the environment. Let's kill the earth. But one way or another, Zionsville is leading, because we're one of the first ones in the state to face this issue. And the rest of the state, the rest of the country is going to be looking at this issue. So when I was a child, and kids of my generation, a frequent question was, Dad, what did you do during the war? And it was in reference to World War II, because everybody did something, my parents' generation, to fight the war. And my grandkids, your grandkids, are going to be asking, what did you do for the war on climate change? And do you really want the answer to be, well, I fought against a solar farm. I don't think that's what we want to do. With farming today, they're dumping hundreds of gallons of Roundup and other chemicals, fertilizers on the ground, into our groundwater. Nobody's saying anything at all about that. You got the algae bloom in the Gulf. Roundup is a known carcinogenic. There's already been lawsuits that they've lost on it. As the one woman stated earlier, during production, solar panels do not pollute. I'm just not getting it. I think this is a good project. It's a low impact on our infrastructure. It's low impact on the schools. And it's a high impact on the taxes. It's no brainer to me.
Thank you.
I'm so glad somebody else started with old people stories before I had to get up here. My name is Steve Eberly. I'm executive director of a statewide organization called Hoosiers for Renewables. Spent my professional career at Purdue University. Also spent a career in county government, spent 35 years starting as a township trustee. Also have a what's called a Hoosier homestead farm, 200-acre cow farm. My grandkids are 6 generations on that farm. My dad filled the holes in the baseboard when that home was electrified back in the 30s. And so we've seen a little bit. My career with energy started back in 2008 when our county, the 3rd smallest county in the state, Warren County, was quoted with ethanol. And we looked at that as an opportunity for the county for investment. It was change. It would use a lot of corn, which is a good thing for us ag people. Later on, we were also looked at for wind turbines. Our county is home to a 150 tower project called Jordan Creek. Did bring forward some nice economic benefits. The tough part about these, and I've sat through many hearings during my career in county government, and I so respect the folks up here. I totally respect both sides of the discussion. Everyone has something in here that is either what they're looking to have or what they're not looking to have. The one thing that's common in this room, and I think it was mentioned, that we all like this. We want it, we panic when it's not on. And that's always comical. Believe you me, when we talked a while ago about population density, we got about 2 people per square mile out there, which also means when the lights go out, we're not really in the highest of priorities to get them back on. So we have to learn how to be resilient. Projects like this, and it's easy to fall into the trap of point counting. You know, this says it will do this says it will not do that. But the fact of the matter is, when I started up this organization back in late 19, we did some survey work, focus groups, 4 different areas in the state. And it's interesting, and I'll reflect backwards just a moment, because as the oldest kid in the house, and also with a real tiny small farm that I was too stupid not to let go of, I have to deal in pragmatics. And the pragmatics of the fact are, when we did these focus groups, folks in the Evansville area are fearful of their air. And that is also home to the drainage of the Wabash River, which there are now numerous, I think almost all of coal-fired plants have announced modification in their portfolios. They have not done this because they got up this morning and thought it was a good idea. It's being demanded by the public. It's being demanded by shareholders of major corporations. I can't talk and do a PowerPoint at the same time, but I do have a nifty little slide that you can find on our webpage that shows that at least 10 of the major corporations in America that are now demanding renewable energy as a portfolio. I've attended the 21st century legislative hearings discussing how we're going to deal with power. There's no plot to take over the world with wind turbines and solar panels. The move is diversification, to try to figure out how we're going to keep that on, keep it affordable, keep it healthy, keep it safe. I think it would be fun to run a survey if you looked at the, I think, 5 or 6 methods that we generate electricity in this country. Which one would you really rather have next to you? And that's an interesting debate. I'm not going to cite wild statistics, but we could go on 60 Minutes. The nuclear disaster in Japan generates currently 150 tons of contaminated water per day. That's a bunch. I mentioned the fact that I'm a farmer. I use nitrates on my farm. I also happen to be past president of a 19-county organization representing all counties that touch the Wabash River. The Midwest is the single largest point count polluter of the Gulf of Mexico with nitrates. Nitrates are very important for corn. Corn, if you see corn in the corner of the field, it's real yellow, it's because it didn't get a drink of a nitrate. Project like this, that land will be rested. That land will be rested and will not be necessary to use that material on that. We talked about degradation in lots of farmland, and while I will grant subdivisions, it's not a big issue in Warren County. But the fact of the matter is, Indiana has 14.9 million acres of farmland. My organization, we traveled tirelessly, myself and 2 other individuals, all over this state. I was in southern Indiana last week, Posey County. And it's just all common that way, that these projects are not going to eat up all of the farmland in this state. There's an old joke in the coffee shop, which, boy, I sure pray for a drought in Iowa, because it's going to raise the price of corn here. And the fact of the matter is, this technology will fit. This technology will fit safely. This technology will enable, and particularly as a livestock farmer my entire life, it will enable folks that have moved to the country. They have a small plot. They are so proud to take their animals to the fair, no matter what they are, and you will raise better kids. The last thing I'll say in terms of the economics and the point that was made about school referendums, We also created a new program in our school, one of the first in the vocational programming that we had. Out of 13 kids, we sent one to Johnson and Wales Culinary School for our culinary program. We have the only culinary program in 3 counties in rural Indiana. And yes, I know a lot more about rural Indiana, but I'd like to hope at my age, I know a little bit about human nature. And with $200 million coming here, there's got to be a project somewhere that somebody could take some advantage of and be just a little bit flexible here and let a little more change come. Last thing is we are the host for a display at the Indiana State Fair this year. We all hope you'll come. We're at the Normandy Barn, and we've had a number of visitors there already. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Do we have anyone online?
Need to check with John.
I'm sorry, John, do we have anybody online who wants to? That's a no. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's transition. So we have heard from members of our public who are in favor of this project. Let's transition to members of our public who have concerns. If you would, please come forward, state your name and address. Again, I will ask, please be concise. Please don't be repetitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, my name is Mike Andrioli, 1393 West Oak Street here in Zionsville. I represent, as you know, a large group of citizens in not only Union Township, but Marion Township in opposition to this particular proposal. I made a supplemental submission to you. There were a number of documents in there. I'm not going to go through all of those, so I'm going to try to be brief because others would like to speak. I'll touch upon a couple of them. But they deal with the environmental concerns and a number of other concerns that we've been able to document. The more that we've gotten into this, the more that we've learned that the solar arrays are not exactly what they're portrayed to be from a short or a long-term situation in terms of some of the studies that have been done. And the studies that I've submitted to you are not necessarily studies that are being proposed by an industry or a group of individuals. Many of these are academic studies that try to look at both sides and try to reach conclusions in some type of empirical or sensible manner. At least the studies that I've seen and submitted seek to do that. And I'll talk a little bit about just a couple of them as to property values. It's interesting that the applicant tonight invoked the town council's support for the plan that has been adopted by the town to encourage environmental consciousness. And I think that's a good plan, and I think it's important, and I think communities need to weigh in on that. But if that in fact was the case, perhaps they should have talked to the town council, because part of your packet includes a unanimous letter, save for one recusal, asking you to either table this or to deny it. Of course, that's purely within your discretion, but at least that's another entity that has weighed in with regard to that. It might have been a good idea for the applicant to go talk to the town council about this. If they're going to go ahead and use them and cite them as approving this environmental conscious plan that we have, which I think is a good plan, and suggest that everybody ought to take maybe personal responsibilities, do some solar panels on their houses, do a number of other things in terms of waste reduction. Has a number of different components to it, all of which are good, and we applaud the mayor as well as the town council in moving forward with that. I've included in your packet that I sent as far as the supplemental, the staff report that was issued by Rachel Cardis, the executive director of the Planning Commission Board of Zoning Appeals. And I wish to suggest to you, I did not do that in any way to try to circumvent Mr. DeLong or anything else. It's just another individual who weighed in that you will give weight to that, to some of her thoughts and comments as it relates to Marion Township. But I would share with you, we have one of our members up there because they met tonight as a plan commission at Boone County Area Plan Commission with regard to a report to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And my understanding from our clients is that they issued a negative report that the applicant's proposed project, Brickyard Solar, does not comply with the master plan. And that was a unanimous vote that sent on to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Again, not determinative for this board at all. And don't mean to suggest that it should be. You'll make your own independent decisions, but it's another piece in the puzzle that may or may not be valuable for your consideration here tonight. It was interesting to hear one analysis that this particular project is going to preserve farmland. And I'll talk about the obvious concern that we have with regard to that statement, is that if you remove farmland, productive farmland, for 30 to 50 years, I don't know how that's preserving farmland. And the reason I say that is currently, as part of your master plan, you cannot have a major residential subdivision in the ag productive ground. It is prohibited. You cannot do it by special exception. The only way you can do that is to go to the Plan Commission, get a recommendation, and then go to the town fathers, who would have to make a decision as to whether they would oversee the Plan Commission and adopt that rezoning proposal. So we're not going to have urban sprawl out in those areas unless the town wants it or desires it, because the town council will have control of that particular process, because you can't do it as a matter of right or by special exception. And that's extremely important because it ties in with the fact and our arguments that under no circumstance has this petitioner met their burden that this particular proposal in any way complies with the comprehensive plan. Certainly doesn't, and at least the Plan Commission found it didn't in Marion Township, but we don't believe that it does as part of your findings that you have to make here in Union Township. We just don't believe it complies. For the obvious reason, you're taking productive farmland out of use for 30 to 50 years. And that's contrary to the approach taken by the comprehensive plan. The other issue that was raised tonight was a suggestion that, and I may not have heard it correctly, and I apologize to the petitioners if I did not. It seems to suggest that in lieu of some type of landscape plan or more detailed landscape plan, they're just offering money. And quite frankly, with a couple of my clients over there, they leaned over and said, "This is insulting." Not everything can be purchased just simply by writing a check. People have moved to the agricultural area as a matter of choice, for the most part. Many of them may have inherited land or maybe even grew up on some of the land there, but they essentially live there as a matter of choice. And if it's their choice to live there, and I would suggest that the approval letters that you have, look at the addresses and see where those are. Most of those will be not in the areas that are immediately affected. And it's important to have those addresses, and I assume that they have their addresses when they issued a letter of approval. But most of those are in Zionsville proper. And therein is the tug that's presented to you as well as the town council in terms of this particular process, and whether the people in Union Township are going to feel protected, welcome, as far as the process in Zionsville, so that when they voted to do the reorganization, that their voice still carries some weight and still matters. We trust that you'll give that consideration that you think is warranted, but certainly that's a very important point. As far as property values, in the written testimony and the analysis done by Professor Corey Lang from Rhode Island that we had submitted in our first submittal, he talked about the property values in Union and in particular Marion Township, so that he understood what those property values were, and he looked at the property values that were set out in some of the comprehensive plan work. and then reach conclusions that given some of the homes there, and if you've driven around Union Township, northern Union Township, you will see that there's a lot of large estates out there. There's a lot of I would call typical farmhouses, but there's a lot of really large estates out there, and these people are going to be impacted by this particular development. And you can bring in all the appraisals in the world, but there's more than just a dollar impact to these folks that we've been arguing about. There's also a quality of life impact in terms of what they seek to enjoy when they moved out to the country. That is not an insignificant impact on their values or their lifestyles. And we would ask that you respectfully consider that when you reach your conclusion. We consulted with Dr. Herbert Eckerlin, who's Professor Emeritus, North Carolina State University, and has a substantial resume in the area of energy and energy use. And he was able to get us to an appraiser done by Mary McCloskey Clay. That was 100 pages in your packet, but Dr. Eckerlin, Professor Eckerlin, was kind enough to go ahead and summarize some of the more important parts for us in order to try to streamline that. And it was clear that this appraisal that I'm citing to you and have included in my packet took exception with the Kohn-Resnick analysis and how they went about their appraisals, and found significant diminution of property values in many of the areas that they looked. So we believe that at worst, there's going to be a significant diminution of property values in the area if this would go in. At best, there's confusion as to that, and we should not take a chance with regard to the property values and the lifestyles of those folks out there. One question with regard to the Mr. Jones asked a question about surety bond, and I don't know the answer to this. Maybe I haven't delved into it as comprehensively as I should have. But with regard to the surety bonds, are they going to require full cash collateral in an account? Because if they're not, have you ever tried to collect? Because I was county attorney in this county for many, many years. Have you ever tried to collect on a surety bond or on a performance bond? It is a nightmare. You do not just write a letter and say, okay, give me the money so we can go in and help with the mitigation of what was caused with regard to this project. It's a nightmare from a legal standpoint and collection standpoint. It is not an easy process, and applicants like to say, well, we'll just do this, and in the wave of a magic wand, that money will be available. No, they're not, if it's a bond issue, they're not going to let loose of that money. It's going to be litigated, and it will be a nightmare for the town in terms of trying to be in the middle of that and trying to collect that. It just will not be an easy proposition. And to that, and one final comment. We believe so strongly that this applicant has not met even the initial burden of suggesting that they're in compliance with the comprehensive plan. If you disagree with that and you approve this project, I would respectfully submit to you that you'll never have another ability to turn down another project in Union Township again. And if you think this may be the last one, if this gets approved, I think we're just kidding ourselves. And the reason is, if in fact this particular project meets the comprehensive plan, it's virtually impossible to suggest that any other project similarly situated would not meet the comprehensive plan. Normally, these things are not precedential in value and in adoption, but in this particular situation, I would take a strong disagreement with that and suggest that this will carry precedential value because you found, without, in our opinion, sufficient facts that this complies with the master plan, you will not have an ability to turn down another one suggesting it does not comply. So another thought. You'll give it the weight that you feel it deserves, but I did want to mention that because that is a concern that I voiced in my second submittal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew.
Hi, my name's Dan Brownlee, and I'm at 7317 East, 100 North, directly across from the impacted area. Appreciate your time. I've spent hundreds of hours over the last couple of months trying to understand what we would be engaging if should this move forward. I think there's a perception that we're opposed to solar. I don't think that's the case. I think solar in the appropriate areas is well founded. However, taking up Zionsville's prime land and putting solar panels on it just doesn't make sense. And this isn't really about solar anyway. This is about big business. This is about NextEra and NextEra shareholders. So it's about federal tax credits and federal tax dollars in lieu of the property value of the residents. Property value has been highly debated. I've raised concerns to you in your letters to you, and I've continued to do my research. You've been presented by NextEra with one study from Cohn-Resnick that says there's no measurable impact. However, as Mr. Andreoli has just told you that you've in your packet, we've submitted 4 different studies, in fact, by 4 different individuals that say it has an impact ranging from 7 to almost 30%. So how can this be? When I said this was about big business, it's about big business. So if you take the 6 case studies that are in the Cohn-Resnick, you can throw out 5 of them because they're in size, not even relative, from 13 to 365 acres. Are those 5 studies. So we're talking a magnitude of 5 times that of the largest, let alone the smallest, and ranging from 1 milliwatt to 48.38 milliwatts. Again, a fraction of what we're talking about. They look at these properties, look at the properties on several of these. You can do this on Google Maps if you want to. You can see the actual solar fields, and you'll find that at least about half of them are in very rural with very limited residential housing around them. So can you really say that the impact to property in Zionsville and Union Township is equal to that? I don't think so. I think Mr. Lake's question, regarding medium income as well as the overall property value is very relative to the impact of the property value. Regarding the North Star analysis, which is close, but it's still only 60% of the project that's being proposed. In respect to that, what you don't see in that report is, and the lady from Cohn-Resnick admitted that the energy company bought 7 of those properties at somewhat close to market value. What your report will go into detail, if you haven't had a chance to review, is that somewhere after that report, those properties were sold at about a 22% decline in what they were purchased for by the energy company. That's a decline of 22%. Or I'm sorry, the dollar value there was around just over $629,000 for those 7 combined. So there is an impact to property value. The details there are very public. In fact, I was starting down that trail myself before I found Mary Clay's report. And I will also add, Mary Clay is also a registered MAI. So we are dealing with credible reporting. Many have written to you about their view, and I think sometimes it gets a little skewed in what they're saying, but now that's often called the viewscape. Undebatable that a property's viewscape has an impact on the property value. The Viewscape is one reason why property on beaches, oceans, lakes, golf courses, et cetera, comes at a premium. Drastically changing the viewscape of Union Township to a sea of steel and glass, not a pond, but a sea of steel and glass, will have a negative impact. And the energy company knows this. That's why they offered one of our residents about half the value of his land to actually acquire it some time ago. Additionally, Alco Energy is a solar development company. One of its owners, Thomas Mellon, is suing the United States Department of Interior in an effort to halt the development of a 800 megawatt vineyard wind offshore wind farm off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. In one appeal that he filed, the complaint claims that the proposed wind farm would have a well-documented and specific and substantial alteration of the direct viewscape from Mellon's property in Nantucket Sound, and he was worried about the value of his property decreasing. And that's coming from one of the founders or the owners of a solar company. This is a documented article in the Renew Economy on July 28, 2021. It makes me wonder how many of those who have supported this initiative have taken the initiative themselves to put solar panels on their property and take the risk and lower the value. Beyond viewscape, property value may also be impacted by soil and or water contamination. NextEra provided a report by UL on the toxicity of the panels. The UL report states in normal operations, there is no risk. Well, what is normal operations? What if the panels is not operating normally? What is the risk then? The gentleman from UL referenced your appliances all have UL ratings. Well, sometimes they catch fire too. So there's no guarantees that go along with a UL approved device. There is still risk. Does normal operations include the damage to high winds, hail, and tornadoes that can impact panels? More importantly, the UL report states at least 3 times more research is needed regarding the toxicity elements and the impact to the environment. The UL report is very generic to the industry and not specific to any specific panel or manufacturer. We all know there are different quality of products for any product in a given market. Has NextEra provided the specific manufacturers of the panels to be used as requested by this board in the community for some time? We have already seen Union property owners, a Union property owner pause his building plans, waiting to see if it's worth his time and investment, or if he needs to try to sell and move on. Others wish they would have known prior to recently purchasing their property so they could have chosen another property. If you haven't driven through Northern Union Township, I would request that you do that and find the amount of opposition against this. It is very strong and very prevalent. It is part of your community, and we ask that you consider that. There's been lots of conversations today about the funding for schools and the revenue that it's going to bring to the schools. However, at last month's meeting, there was questions about the model that was used to establish that $50 million, which is actually $35 million, which keeps jumping around because we really don't know how much revenue is going to come up. And I don't know that we have a solid answer on that. Nor did we get a solid answer on if an abatement would be filed, which will negate much of that revenue. So in the interest of time, I will stop there, but I do ask that you seriously consider the property value and the impact to the members of your community. Thank you.
Thank you for participating. 1 second. In the interest of time, I'm going to limit public comment to who we have standing in front of us. So thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for taking comments at all. I'm Julia Schultz. I'm currently living with family in Austin Oaks while we build our home hunt club. I'm one of those transplants from California. We escaped from California to get away from a lot of things, and this is one of them. California is a poster child for solar. California has the largest amount of solar production, 29%. The next closest is Texas. It's less than 7%, and we all know what happened in Texas recently. The maximum efficiency rate is around 26%. But what I'm going to speak from experience, because we've lived it. I've lived there my entire life. You guys have no idea what a gem this town is for people like us that come here. I love Zionsville. It's beautiful. The farmland is gorgeous. I love being surrounded by beans and corn. I love it. I don't want this destroyed. This is my forever home. This is where I plan to be forever. I don't want you destroyed. We left a town that started out rural. It was avocados and orange groves, one of the few areas left in Southern California. It is no longer. So please, I'm begging you, do not destroy this town. There's hard to find anything like this here anywhere else. At any rate, sorry, I digress. California has almost 365 days a year of sun. And we have probably at least half of the year over 80 degrees. We fell for the solar thing and we put the solar panels on our house. My husband was retiring several years afterwards, knowing he was going to use shop equipment more. We added panels in addition to, after they did their whole analysis, here's what you're going to need. It's going to cover everything you have. No, it didn't. Okay, it's about 80%, it's 20% efficient basically is what it is. So let's say your income was taxed 80% and you only got to keep 20%. Would you consider that a bargain? Because that's kind of what you're getting with the solar. Hey, this is great. They do a great job of selling it. I'm telling you, they do a great job and we fell for it. But it did not cover our energy. In fact, our electric bills went up because of the solar. Guess what happens? Here's an unintended consequence. The electric company is now no longer making the revenues that they were making. So guess what? Your rate has to go up to cover the solar stuff. When we were selling our house and left California and escaped, we got a bill from the electric company because now you're not using enough electricity at all. So now we're just going to bill you more. Like, what? I'm not even there using it. Okay, so these are things that come up. Unless you have a battery backup system, you're losing a ton of what the solar would be producing anyway. Okay, what are batteries? They're toxic. So now you have more toxicity that you're going to put into the land. You think this is the panacea for saving the planet? No, it is not. I guarantee you it is not. There's maintenance. If the panels aren't kept clean, they are not running efficiency. As they degrade over time, they're not efficient. The inverters fail. The panels break. And my husband talked last time about hail. This is the biggest hail I've ever seen in my life. I mean, we all thought somebody was shooting at the house. It was so loud when we heard it. So yeah, that can break the panels. As far as the vegetation, you do need to maintain it, but they're talking about, oh, but we'll put pretty stuff around it. So it'll look really nice. You can still see it. The panels are ugly. Unless you have stuff that's tall enough to completely keep it out of view of everybody, it's not doing any good. Now, if you do that, guess what? You don't get any sun. Now, think about it. In California, with all those solar panels, all that sun, how come there's rolling blackouts all the time? How come they're begging people with electric cars not to charge their cars? There's not enough electricity. The grid can't handle it. So not only solar, but California is the 5th largest producer of wind energy. So now you combine all of that and they're still not meeting it. Had they not done that, quite frankly, I think that we would have been better off. California is also the most polluted state. So all of that solar, all that wind power is not cleaning the air. Think about it. And it's been brought up as who is benefiting from this. It's not Zionsville. I think it was Chairman Wolf that asked the question what the energy company was and where that power was going. It is not Zionsville. It's not here. So why are we destroying our land for this? Zionsville is going to get a solar wasteland, reduced air quality, because it's basic science. When you have more plants like farmland with plants, your air is cleaner. That's the whole process with photosynthesis. It cleans your air. Solar panels aren't going to do that. The solar company is going to be the biggest benefactor, and they're going to leave us with an eyesore, basically. I talked about some of the unintended consequences. There's one more thing that isn't really on the table here yet, but it's something that ended up happening where we were after all this went in. And it's called smart meters. Now that they've put the solar grid in there, now they're connecting to the solar grid. Appliances now have information telling you what appliance it is. Now these meters are tracking everything that you use in your house. They are tracking your peak usage. So it's no longer, oh, the peak usage of the day, it's the peak usage per person. And your rates will go up and your peak usage period. So if you think you're gonna save money by, oh, I'll just use it later at night like they say to use it, the electricity, you're not. That's not how it's gonna work. Let's see. So it's also, okay, this is really a political thing. Everybody cares about the town. Everybody wants to do the best, what's best for our town. We disagree on how to do that. This is one of those feel-good choices. Look how good I am. I care so much about the planet because I'm going to use solar. It's not going to save the planet. Sorry. I am not anti-solar. I do agree with the gentleman that spoke before me. There are uses for it, but this is not it. I beg you, do not take away this beautiful farmland and put these solar panels there. If you want additional uses, then put it on like a parking structure, put a roof cover over it and put the panels on top of the roof. There are applications where it makes sense, but this does not. And I'm sorry, I can't read that far down there. The gentleman on the end, he mentioned the decommissioning. And when the lady spoke about, well, all these other places are doing it. Okay, I'm just gonna leave you with this. For those of you who remember it, there was a place called Jonestown and everybody drank the Kool-Aid too. That turned out to be not a good idea. Thank you. Please vote against that.
Thank you. Thank you for participating.
Good evening, Greg Schultz, Zionsville resident.
Mr. Schultz, if you spoke last month, would you like to give the opportunity for someone else to speak?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I want to be clear on that. That's not fair to Mr. Schultz. He took the time. If you spoke last time, please give somebody else the opportunity. We want to avoid repetitive comments and we want to add breadth and depth to our conversation. So I'd leave it there.
I spoke last time. I am not going to repeat anybody else's comments.
Okay.
Andy Grinstead, 9400 East, 300 North. I received a letter, firefighter from Westfield, which you probably know Westfield has a mutual aid agreement with Zionsville. I'm not going to read that letter to you, but I'm going to read 3 sentences out of his letter. Verbatim. Not my words, the firefighter's words. Imagine a hot, dry August day with a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind, and that dry vegetation under these solar panels combusts and catches fire, and then causes the solar panel to combust and start to burn. The amount of smoke that will be produced alone will require mass evacuation from residences. Skip down a little bit more, I'm gonna read another sentence. Quote, there would be no doubt in my mind that my agency would be called to assist not just with the suppression of such a large fire, the transporting of inhalation victims to area hospitals, pronouncing the death of potential victims that were overcome by the toxic smoke, but also the hazardous air monitoring that would be caused by the combustion of solar arrays. Skip down to the next sentence and the last sentence that I'm going to read from his letter. When fire melts these elements, it creates a very high health hazard smoke. I dread the day as a firefighter or a resident that this solar project goes up in flames. I'm not going to address property values. I'll skip it. I do want to address the comprehensive plan, the specific Zionsville comprehensive plan. I'm going to read a few goals from that comprehensive plan. Goal 10, retain the small town atmosphere of Zionsville by encouraging well-planned design developments that complement and enhance the overall scale, density pattern, and architectural integrity of the community. Goal 12, preserve the natural environment as an important aspect and unique attribute of Zionsville. Goal 16, encourage the development of tourism facilities that improve economic diversity of Zionsville without adversely affecting the unique character of the area and the quality of life enjoyed by the residents and visitors. Goal 17, minimize the effect of future land uses that have a high potential for adversely impacting the environment and character of an area. I'll also read one excerpt from the environmental and open space overlay. That's part of the comprehensive plan. Both the town of Zionsville and Boone County recognize the importance in maintaining and preserving open space and environmentally sensitive areas. Open space and the unique natural features of the planning area establish the image of the quality of life in the town for visitors and residents alike. Preservation of this natural beauty is required to enhance the general welfare and character of the area. From the comprehensive plan amendments that was adopted in 2014, specific for the Union Township, the desirability of the rural small town character and quality of life of the area combined with the ease of access to two townships has created a brisk real estate market for new residential development. Many new homes in the area surrounding Zionsville tend to be high priced compared to other areas of the county. Public input strongly supports new residential development and should respect the unique rural and natural character of the area. A variety of open space preservation techniques should be employed to ensure new development respects the existing scenic features of the landscape. It's very clear that passage of this project would not meet goals 10, 12, 16, and 17 of the Zionsville Comprehensive Plan. It's very clear this passage of this project would not protect open spaces within the community. It would not preserve the quality of life for the community. It would not respect the natural character of the area, nor preserve the scenic features of the area. It would not protect the rights of adjacent property owners. What this project would do, it would dismantle the morale of the community. It would alter the quality of life for those actually living in the community. It would decrease neighboring property values. It would create grave safety concerns for the neighborhood, and it would basically eliminate the desire to live here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tammy Sarkeen. I don't live on, but I have land on 950 North, 800 East. My husband and I purchased this property to build our dream home. We wanted our kids to go to Zionsville schools, and now the dream is destroyed. I have 10 acres and I don't want to live here because I don't want to look directly across the street at a solar field. We live in Danville, Indiana right now, across from a cornfield, and I love it. It's beautiful. I don't know if anybody has ever thought about what happens to these solar panels after they're gone. Where do they go to? Landfills? The study of Harvard Business Review has said by 2030, our landfills will be filled with these solar panels. So who takes these solar panels to these landfills? Huge trucks. They have to have gas. So are we protecting our environment at this point? And then the solar company says hedges. Well, how tall are these hedges going to be? We're going to look directly in front of us. Are they going to be 3 foot tall in front of our house if we ever build? So please think about this when, our house we were going to build was going to be, a beautiful home, $1 million home. Now you guys don't get any of these houses that people want to build on these properties. So think about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Victoria Westler, 6906 North Caldwell Road, Lebanon, Indiana. The solar companies would have you believe that solar power is the energy of the future. One of our speakers said tonight that it is the common sense solution to our energy needs. We talked last time that the early adapters such as Germany, the UK, Australia, California, New Mexico, and North Carolina believe that that solar energy is the energy of the past, and solar energy makes absolutely no sense. Solar star continues to fall. Not too long ago, China declared its desire for world dominance, as Chinese often do, with regard to the use of solar power as the country's primary energy source. The Chinese are quick studies. They know what works and they know what doesn't. And they have the confidence to make changes in the face of new and compelling information. They don't sit in their mistakes, and they deal in pragmatics. In April of this year, the Deputy Secretary General of the National Development and Reform Commission of China said the following with regard to their abandonment of their aggressive solar embrace. Because renewable energy sources such as solar power are intermittent and unstable, we must rely on a stable power source. We have no other choice. The article from CNBC goes on to talk about how they will be abandoning their aggressive stance with renewable energy and going on to other energy that is more reliable, energy that keeps the lights on. Once the Chinese knew better, they did better. They saw solar fail in their country. They rejected the instability of solar energy in favor of their country's safety and security. I would ask this evening that you do the same for Zionsville. Thank you.
Thank you for participating. Hi, my name is Matt Brownlee, 7317 East 100 North, Whitestown. I'll speak for the younger side of the room on the side who's not so for solar in this area. My background's in informatics and cybersecurity. I've done a lot of studying and a lot of development work with urban informatics and how we can generate better uses of power and implement technology all through buildings and urban developments, architecture, whatnot. So we found in our studies that solar panels really work great as supplemental energy on the top of skyscrapers and buildings where they're out of sight. It's not being used for other purposes. That space is dead space in a city. No one's looking up at it. Birds aren't really living there. That space has already been void of its native species. Another thing we heard a lot tonight is how solar is energy of the future. When you look back and you see the history of how power plants have developed, and we've gone through all these different resources, the same proposals were made to different business and zoning appeals or whatever processes that were in place at that time to get these things there. They were guaranteed safety and all these benefits, tax money. But as we're looking at now, we are looking at an issue with energy and renewable energy and protecting the environment. Let's talk about Evansville. There's a lot of people there and they're suffering from air quality. That wasn't a pro of that proposal. It wasn't even a known at the time of exactly what's going to happen. Nuclear energy was proposed as the energy of the future because it was safe. That's a joke now. So is really the lack of answers and the lack of reassurance by NextEra what you're going to make your decision on the future of Zionsville, a city so close to Indianapolis that has a bright future? Does this really fit into it? And are you really going to risk destroying the culture of Zionsville on what ifs and lack of assurances and a lack of answers? Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Nancy Brownlee, 7317 East 100 North Whitestown. And I am a part of the consortium on that side of the room. And I just want to say that we care. We care about the environment, we care about climate, but we care about our community as well. Drive down our roads in Union Township for evidence of that. We care about raising quality crops and livestock that feed the world. We care about our property. We care about our health and our safety and our well-being. We also care very much about one another. We are neighbors, we are good friends, we are family, we are extended family, and we are a very thriving and philanthropic community. Prior to July 7th, 2021, there were close to 130 letters submitted to you and approximately 175 notarized petitions posted online opposed to a solar farm in Boone County. There were close to 20 letters in support of a solar farm in Boone County, and including letters from those who would financially benefit from it. Post July 7th, even with NextEra mailing prepaid postcards to Zionsville town residents, there were less than 50 that were returned. And unless I missed someplace online, Zach said that there were 57 letters. There were prepaid postcards. There were about 6 emails, and there may have been a couple of letters in there that I missed that were written in support of solar. And approximately 30 more people opposed with the cards, with a few additional letters written as well. Of the almost 50 postcards in support, only one lives near our impacted area. The meeting room last month was full, and it's even more full this month, with a number of constituents also viewing the meeting online. No count was taken, but many were there to oppose. There are over 1,200 pages of letters, reports, expert testimonies, and journal articles online right now. Countless research hours have been put into this project by us, the local residents, because we care. We care, and we feel strongly this project will be a detriment to this thriving community for years to come. And I just have to add, because I'm a right fighter, that I think it should be mentioned that not only did North Star in Minnesota, not only did the energy company, and I recognize it wasn't NextEra, but not only did they buy the houses and then resell them later, they also invoked good neighbor contracts with people to be quiet. They paid anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 for their silence. I don't know if that's going on in this room in my community, but I think it's worth mentioning. I speculate that none of us anticipated being indoctrinated to the pros and cons of large-scale solar installations on prime farmland in the last 9 months, especially you all. But this is where we find ourselves because of large power lines installed years ago. Upon my review of the online information again last night, it occurred to me that the Ford Center petition, which is supposed to come up for discussion tonight, submitted more quality detail and specifications than I have seen regarding Brickyard Solar, unless I've missed something, the solar project has much greater impact on my home and my community than that project. I am puzzled by this, especially in light of the fact that 650,000 solar panels spanning 4.2 square miles over 30 years, maybe, will be a living, breathing thing, which has the possibility of impacting us daily in multiple negative ways. It doesn't just get built and exist like a building, and we get used to it. It has a life like very few of the projects you probably vote upon. To be honest, it feels as if the voice of NextEra is louder than ours. Maybe that's a misnomer, but that's what it feels like. But my question is, should it be? Research and experts indicate we may be dealing with an energy industry that is desperate at best. At best, this project has maybe a 50% chance of saying what it will be if you review the documents online. My question is it worth the risk to your community? Some may say Zionsville is being progressive and looking big picture by approving this project, and we've heard that tonight. But my understanding is that the BZA is charged with protecting its constituents while responsibly overseeing growth. What if history proves the progressive move is to deny this project, to enable future growth, bringing many more benefits to the town and to our county than a solar farm in the future? What if you demonstrate wisdom in denying this project based on the data? What if you're one of the first BZAs to go beyond the smoke and mirrors and deny this project? Personal agendas and politics aside, we once again respectfully ask you to continue to consider the data and unanimously deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'm going to close public comment. We've heard lots of wonderful testimony. Thank you all for participating in our conversation. Fellow board members, we typically would hear the staff report this time. Do you have any questions for the? Ironic. Do you have any questions that you would like to ask the petitioner at this time? Seeing none immediately. Wayne, may we have the staff report?
Certainly, this project certainly, as we well indicated this evening, it is very unique. Certainly, a special exception review within an area plan commission is different than an advisory plan commission. Certainly, Mr. Andreoli spoke to that in part earlier this evening. Certainly, staff has reviewed the petition as it's been filed based upon the information that's available to us. There's certainly some questions in the staff report. The petition is, or the staff report is supportive of the project. I do want to speak to just the special exception review process, just generally. The zoning ordinance itself outlines many different land uses that are permissible by special exception in the ag district, be it a residential home, a cell tower, or a utility installation. So the scale, the breadth, the depth isn't necessarily something the ordinance speaks to. It's very black and white. Is this or is this not a utility? Is this or is not a cell tower? Is this not a home? Therefore, the staff is reviewing the project based upon how the zoning ordinance dictates that review to be conducted. That's what's being discussed this evening. As the staff report reads, again, the report is supportive of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Wayne. If I may try to put some color onto your statement, we have often discussed that as a staff, you have the opportunity to review this petition or any petition in 2D, and our discussion allows us to gain a third dimension and see more color and more depth. Is that what you were driving towards?
That's a pretty strong analysis and an accurate one. I mean, after 25 years of doing this type of work, 21 years as a public planner employed by municipalities, that's the generalization a planner would make. And certainly the information, the additional information that's being shared this evening is, while wonderful, it's not necessarily all this detail is something that the staff would have the opportunity to incorporate into that two-dimensional review. I mean, certainly the comprehensive plan is that living, breathing document that's been mentioned this evening. And certainly if the analysis was so narrow to which the things that have been said this evening, that, you know, such uses, if this, for example, if this use was approved, then everything would have to be approved for here on out. That is not the case. Each petition is unique. There are standards that are applied in each case. The comprehensive plan is definitely a part of your three-step findings, that the character of the district is being maintained, that the comprehensive plan is being looked at, adhered to, read, applied, and certainly when you find utility installations all throughout the United States, Boone County, 421, here in town, they are substation, cell tower. Those items are installed where they're needed, where a special use says they are desired for a variety of reasons. And then the public process then debates, you know, the final granular points that are being expressed in this room this evening. Again, your analysis is very strong, and again, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. DeLong. And I would also, before we move on, I would like to thank you, the staff, and everyone. A tremendous volume of data and information has come in, and I know has put a lot of strain on your group. And so I appreciate all of them processing this and getting us to an organized manner so we can make an educated decision. So thank you.
Certainly happy to serve.
Wayne, I'm going to ask you, I have a couple questions for you before we turn it over to our group for discussion. And the first one, very generically, I'm not aware of anything in our zoning ordinance that addresses solar specifically. Are you familiar with anything that?
No, there is not. I mean, this is also very common in areas that have zoning ordinances that are 10, 15, 20
Right.
years old in their original formation. As this group knows, and certainly as the plan commission, the two members that are here, they're on the plan commission, you do see edits from time to time as proposed, but every year and a half to keep things updated. But certainly solar, alternative energy, climate action, these are terms that have not been found their way into the zoning ordinance yet. As you know, we've kicked off a year-long process with the form-based code and to work on these things, among others. And certainly in this staff report, we reference the model code that's available to us to compare this project to. Certainly there's comments back and forth, pros and cons as to who wrote that, where is it generated, what's it doing. But again, that is a book that is vetted and available, and is what we've added to the context for this evening.
Thank you, sir. And I would add that, assuming that a comprehensive plan or zoning ordinance could cover every single instance is naive. And that's why we have these meetings. And that's why we have these discussions, is for these nuances. So with that, any other questions for staff at this time? Quiet group. Discussion amongst the group. So I will say this publicly. I know you are all familiar with it, but for the members of our audience who are fairly new to the process, the petitioner has 3 burdens to meet. And if they don't meet all 3 of the burdens, then we are obligated to deny it. If they meet all 3 of the burdens, then we're obligated to approve it. That is the rule. So let's just quickly skim over those. And if you have any comments as we review them, let me know. The proposed use will not be injurious to the public health, safety, comfort, community morale, standards, convenience, or general welfare. So that's our first burden that they must meet. Generally, I think about this burden as safety. We've heard a lot of testimony about debris and things like that. I'm not particularly concerned. I generally trust engineering. I think, I don't have a particular concern here, but does anyone have a particular concern on this one?
Not necessarily, knowing that the farms, if actively farmed, likely pollute more than you would have if you had residual runoff. And the UL report does state that at the end of the useful life, the panel can release toxins. It also says that it does release toxins, that just not at a level that is above the minimum threshold. So, there are contaminants with everything. Your new car smell, those are carcinogens. So hope you like them. We're not all going out and not buying new cars. Breathing air, you get carcinogens every day. So I think there are trade-offs with that. So to me, the safety is not something worth debating here, because the agricultural side is as bad or worse than this would be from a safety standpoint.
It's difficult for me to assess that, but as I look at all the information we have been presented and delivered to us, again, I don't necessarily have something that raises a red flag. Any other comments from the group?
I'm in agreement with Mr. Lake. I don't see the safety as a significant issue.
So the second burden that they must meet is the proposed use will not injure or adversely affect the adjacent area or property values therein. We've heard a lot of testimony back and forth. It turns out some compelling testimony on both sides on whether it does or does not affect it. I've learned that there are such things as facts and false facts, and the science there. I probably do have some concerns here. I'm not sure if I buy one particular side's evidence more than the other, but I do have the unknown, which causes me some concern.
I believe that it is possible that all those studies are 100% accurate. And I also believe that none of those studies 100% represent Zionsville. And I think that's the challenge that I see, is that we don't fit any of those norms. We're not so much of a rural agricultural district that, people aren't dying to move into that area anyway. People are, dying to find 10 acres in the same area we're talking about to build their dream home. I mean, that's my next home, I would hope, would be up in that area as well. So, I certainly see that. And I do believe that because of that desire, because of the idyllic setting that we've created for ourselves, that we say day in and day out that we want to maintain, that a project like this would in fact drop home values for those non-participating residents. I fully believe that to be the case. Significantly enough that that's one I don't know that we can get over.
You're concerned about finding the second finding of the fact.
Yeah.
I am as well. Both of the petitioner and the remonstrators may be accurate with the studies they represent, but it seems to me that common sense would tell me that no one moves the country and wants to see that. So the view shed or the viewscape is not something that people would want to see. And that means it limits your market, and that means supply and demand has changed. Not only that, I think that the Cohen-Resnick study depended a lot on what they heard from appraisers and assessors. And my own limited experience with assessors and appraisers are that they don't look much at that. But they're probably willing to give you their off-the-cuff opinion. Whereas the study from Rhode Island, I think, delved into a lot of detail. It was criticized because it went up to a mile, but he did break it down and say the closer you are, the greater the impact. And it also said that basically farmland is not affected. If it's an open field that's going to continue to be farmed, it's probably not affected. But it does affect residential values. So I too am concerned about that one.
Well, I guess I'm always down here with the you don't own the view line, and I'm kind of going to stick with that again. It's an interesting read, the package of stuff we've got, and I went through the damage study theory and methodology piece and kind of picked it apart a little bit. When we repeatedly get requests for variances for homes out in agricultural areas, and we always make sure we include the Right to Farm Act, because we realize that, I mean, we don't realize, but the point I'm going to make is a home, a house, a residence is a emotional decision. The purchase price of the land, the cost of the sewer, the cost of the electric, the cost of the lumber, all are a fixed number. But once you're done and you've spent that hard dollar, you end up with something that gets an emotional value attached to it. The reason we attach the Right to Farm Act is because we know from history that people can come forward and lodge a complaint that the value of their emotional expenditure is being affected by the farmer across the street. On the other hand, though, we never really take a hard look at what a farmer actually is. And basically, a farmer is a person who has a piece of property that is income producing. The only reason the farmer owns that farm and does his farming is to make money. He's not out there growing anything because he likes it, because he thinks it's pretty. He does it to make money. And what's interesting about farmland that's different from any other kind of for-profit or commercial piece of property is the farmer has the right to produce income right up to the property line. When it comes to building a warehouse or a factory, there's setbacks or requirements. There's, a whole lot of other things that keep it kind of back off the edge. So I guess one of the pieces I'm concerned about is that the farmer has the right to the benefit of earning the income off this land however he sees fit. So all these stories and lines about how we're losing farmland or we're losing this and all that kind of stuff, no, it doesn't. The farmer is farming it and creating that view solely for his own purpose of creating income. The fact we've attached some sort of emotional value to it, we don't really get to do. One of the more interesting lines in here is, and I kind of highlighted it, was the right of exclusion, often called the right of exclusive use or right of exclusive enjoyment, provides that those who have no claim on property should not gain economic benefit from enjoyment of the property. So basically, all the people who move to the rural area because they like it, because they have some emotional attachment to it, are now trying to kind of take an economic gain from somebody that they're not compensating, hence the farmer. So as much as, yes, common sense says that you get a solar field across from your house, it's going to affect the value of the house, I'd firmly agree with. But the fact that we should then, penalize the farmer for trying to make a business decision regarding a piece of property that he has a history of making business decisions with how it is used, I think is an equal taking from him. So I'm,
We ask those residences when they're moving there to sign a right to farm act, not a right to solar act. And the reason we do that is there is an expectation when they move there that they can't be upset that there's corn. We don't ask them to have an expectation.
no.
that
We
there's
can't
solar
be
panels.
upset that they are conducting activities to generate revenue off that piece of property. Maybe corn, maybe soybean.
The definition of farm though, doesn't include solar.
So let's,
You don't grow a panel.
I think this leads into the third burden.
This
Which
fight
is-
between Chris, oh, no, sorry.
The proposed use will be consistent with the character of the district, land use authorized therein, and the town of Zionsville comprehensive plan. And so I think where Mr. Lake was driving to, and I am sympathetic to this position, that if I move out into that area, it is farmland. I signed the right to farm. I mean, I know that the people are doing that. And I have an expectation that the guy's going to drive a combine there. And that when he does, the mice will come into my house and those types of things, but it'll be pretty during July and August and those types of things. But will be consistent with the character of the district. I don't think, because in our master or in our comprehensive plan, nor in our ordinances does it reference solar. How could you make the assumption that that field will go from this to a solar field? I don't think that's consistent to me. I think they have.
And I would say character as an aesthetic quality in that sense. And looking out and seeing a solar farm, metal and glass in a area that is not typically known for metal and glass is not in keeping with the same character.
You know, I will say this plainly. I believe climate change is a real thing. I have two schools in this, I have two kids, two sons in the Zionsville School District. I voted for the referendum both times it's come up in front of me. I support that. I like the idea of $35 million. I mean, that doesn't sound bad to me at all. The proposed use will be consistent with the character of the district. I don't think, I'm having trouble swallowing that pill. Ms. Campins?
Well, with the comprehensive plan, it says that you have to encourage agricultural operations. You know, and that solar farm does not fit that.
The other thing that hasn't been brought up is this solar project likely for these adjacent neighbors will create a 5 to 7 degree increase in their temperature at night because it's a heat island. And that actually leaves their property and does affect the person next to it. So the person that wants to have their windows open when it's 72 degrees out and enjoy the spring air at night is now going to have 77 or 78 degree air that they're dealing with.
I like you. I have two beliefs that global warming is real. And I think it makes sense to diversify our sources of electrical energy as much as possible. Solar nor wind will ever replace what we, in the way of consistent power. They're both intermittent, but I think they have a place. But I don't believe that this meets that requirement that we are to adhere to, which says it is consistent with the area.
Mr. Mundy, it may be, but it's not currently in our comprehensive plan, articulated in our comprehensive plan that way. And we're obligated to say that they did not meet that. If they did not meet that burden, we're obligated to deny it. And I just, as I read the comprehensive plan, as I look at that statement, the proposed use will be consistent with the character of the district. I can't swallow that pill. That's my opinion. I'm one of 5, but that's the pill I can't swallow.
And, while, believe in climate change, support solar, have buildings I've designed with solar panels on the roof, buildings use 70% of the electricity. And if Zionsville, I think the intent behind their climate plan was to reduce the energy used, not necessarily or not just create more of it in a sustainable fashion. And so our building codes at a state level or ordinances we could introduce locally would have a much more significant impact on climate change by reducing the amount of energy buildings use versus the solar project.
So I'll go back to the original statement. The petitioner has the obligation of meeting the 3 burdens that we've discussed. If they do not, then we're obligated to deny it. If they have, then we're obligated to vote in favor of it. Any further discussion amongst the group? Mr. Jones?
I
only called on you because you looked up.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking things. There's some other issues still that, are boiling around with the combination of the insurance, and then still, I really wish they'd supplied some better documentation as to where the panels are going to go. We asked an entire round of questions about trying to sort out the difference between the 1,600 acres and the 800 acres fenced and the 300 acres of panels. And I don't think we got any information on that.
There were some additional zoomed in images that helped a little bit.
A little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
They came
today. I will say there was, it was late arriving, but there was some additional information.
I was entrenched in the damage study theory and methodology.
There was at least an effort made to provide.
All right.
Yeah, I would agree. There was. My thought process doesn't still revolve around that. It's still that third finding of fact that whether the density of those panels doesn't. I would go so far as I reread the minutes. I'm sorry, you people, fellow board members, you down there, everybody to my left. I had the opportunity to review the minutes to the best of my ability. I didn't get them done in time. We discussed that earlier, but it was discussed earlier that the 400 feet came from other communities' ordinances. It's not in our ordinance. It's not a part of what we have discussed as a comprehensive plan. So I don't know how it can be aligned with it if it's.
I think if this were allowed or discussed or contemplated in the comprehensive plan, and there would be a way to maybe reshape the way that the panels are laid out so they don't wrap some of these houses on 3 sides, we'd be having a completely different conversation.
Yeah, and as I told Mr. DeLong, we can't assume that the comprehensive plan is going to cover every scenario. It certainly will not. But the proposed use will be consistent with the character of the district. Can't get past that. That's me. Is there any other discussion amongst the group? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move that docket number 2021-13-SE special exception for multiple parcels located in northern Union Township, west of South US 421, south of County Road 200 North, and east of County Road 600 East, to allow for the development of a solar farm with the agricultural zoning district be denied.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mundy. So as a note, there's a negative motion on the floor. So a vote of aye is in favor of denying the petition. With that understanding, Mr. DeLong, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye.
Mrs. Campens.
Aye.
Mr. Mundy.
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye. The petition is denied. With a negative vote, this petition is continued to the next matters meeting to allow for adoption of the negative findings of fact. Thank you. If you will take a brief moment to allow the audience to clear who doesn't want to hear about the next item on our agenda.
Can we take a brief moment to clear?
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that I'm not.
Is Joe not managing that?
Oh, yeah, send the officer off. This will, yeah, I like where you're going.
There you go.
Yep.
Mr. Jones?
You know, I. Agreements, they even had one in there. And then when he said, I wonder if that's something that they test on that. They said, we're gonna have to pull the trigger on that, because they said nothing about harassment.
So I get, Mr. Wolf, I have a question. I have a question.
Yes.
If we've already reviewed the petition,
Yeah, no, it's diminishing return on Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's probably the next three is possible.
This meeting back together. Mr. Kite, I know you're excited. The next item on our agenda is docket number 2021-19-DSV. I would want to, before you begin, I will make a note. We have, our rules procedures say the board may elect to not begin the hearing of any matter after 10 p.m. local time if the hearing on a petition does not begin by presenting order by 10 a.m. Okay, so here's my question to the group. Ford Center and Altums, can you raise your hand? Ford Center, Altums, Ford Center.
Ford
Online.
Center is going to be presenting online.
Okay, thank you. We have Mr. Kite, we have three in front of those. What are your guys' thoughts here? Do we want to, our rules suggest that we can continue those to the next hearing. We could certainly adjust to hold a special meeting to get through these, or we can, I don't know, I'm open to suggestions. I want to be respectful of people's time.
Yeah, my only thought is hopefully we've all reviewed these. And so if we can get as little a comment as possible from the petitioner, allow us to ask our questions. It doesn't look like there's going to be much, if any, public comment. We might be able to get through these fairly quickly because we've hopefully all done our homework and read the packets and are familiar with the issues.
Okay, so I have it at 9:15, 9:14. So we did have a comment from a member of the public in another meeting, another setting, that they continued business at 9:50. They assumed it was going to stop and it didn't. They continued on. So we need to make on the record a decision by 9:45 on how we're going to proceed. Fair enough. Okay. Mr. Kite.
Thank you. I'll be super quick, hopefully. Paul Kite with Strongbox Commercial, offices at 65 East Cedar, representing Nicholson Orthodontics with respect to a variance request for 9 parking spaces. I think to be quick, I'll talk about what's different from the last submission. The commitments remain the same. The difference is that we have entered into an agreement with the adjacent property owner, Mr. Harris, to lease 9 spaces from his lot immediately behind his building there. I know there was some question from staff with respect to previous commitments for that lot. There was only a letter of intent with respect to the majority of those spaces discussed. I spoke with him this afternoon. He does not have an agreement with respect to the vast majority of those spaces. The only agreement he has is to lease the former Chamber of Commerce building immediately north of the Lions Club building to that use, and those spaces immediately behind that. So none of the spaces immediately to the east of
the larger building to the north, are committed to, and he remains available to lease those spaces for our use.
Mr. Kite, could you describe, do you have the petition in front of you?
Yes.
Could you, on exhibit 2, could you orient me on what spaces you're describing?
Okay, so on exhibit 2, the building that's immediately north of the Lions Club, actually right on the intersection of Oak and Elm.
Yes, sir.
That's the former Chamber of Commerce. So that lot and the spaces that are paved immediately to the east of that building are committed for a lease to Cohatch, I believe. So all of the spaces in the lot north of that are not committed. I think it's his understanding that they're seeking spaces elsewhere.
So I have a question that I asked last time that I didn't get the answer I wanted. Does your client, how do the majority of his patients get to the facility?
Well, quite a few of them take the Braces bus, if you're familiar with that.
That's where I was going last time. I was expecting you to state that. So
I just wanted to confirm that was still going, and that is still going. My kids used to use Braces bus, and if you had a break in school, 40 minutes or whatever, they pick you up, they run you over to Jim's office 10 minutes later.
So
On the way
you
back.
may potentially have less parking demand than would normally be encountered because the Brace bus would serve as the primary transportation vehicle for those kids.
Fixture of the community, yes.
Okay.
And then,
Thank you.
and then the other difference is I wasn't sure exactly how many chairs. That was another question, how many chairs were in the addition, and it's 5 chairs. I think I was wrong. I think I said 7 or 8 or something.
Yeah, I think you were higher than that.
It was only 5. Okay. So there's a more detailed plan in here for you guys to review.
So
Mr.
there's
Kite?
still-
Oh, go
still
ahead.
parking in the front of the building, right in front?
Yes.
How many are there?
Are you talking about Oak Street?
Yeah, Elm.
There's on Elm Street, there's 6 spaces.
Okay, 6.
5 normal size spaces and 1 handicap space.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I had a lot of conversation tonight.
I'm-
The lot you're referring to, Mr. Mundy orientated me towards it. Those are not, the current owner does not have an active agreement to lease those spaces out.
Correct.
Those are available for your consumption.
Correct.
And you would execute per this petition, you would execute an agreement to secure those.
Correct.
Okay.
And there's how many spaces there?
I think there's more than 9. I think his agreement would be for 9.
4-9.
Correct. This would be for only 9 spaces.
I'm sorry, I got lost as to where that is.
So right here where the Chamber of Commerce used to be, there's a lot like that.
Mr. Kite, would there be parking to articulate this? I'm sorry, would there be signage to articulate this?
We can certainly include that, yes.
6 spaces.
I can't figure out how you're gonna fit 9 cars down there when 4 on the lot to the north of it seem to fill up that same amount of area.
So are you familiar with the tennis courts at the Lions Club? I mean, at Lions Park, the tennis courts?
Sure.
So these are all those parking spaces that the tennis players use that are actually Mr. Harrison.
There's a
DLF.
gravel lot, Larry, as well. There's a gravel lot and there's a paved lot.
Is this the part?
Well, the gravel and paved lot are the things that Cohatch are gonna use, correct?
No.
No, the Cohatch is just south of that. In that
Chamber of
very small
Commerce.
lot.
Oh, maybe I told you the wrong one.
Where we at?
This is the Chamber of Commerce building and this is their lot here.
This is the lot he's talking about, which is also includes his.
Oh,
gravel
okay.
portion back here.
That's
Sorry
what
about
Cohatch
that.
is using.
That's what they're saying. They're looking for, did you say Cohatch is looking for spaces elsewhere? They've not signed on to those?
They have not signed an agreement with Mr. Harris.
Have they paid Mr. Harris?
They supposed to.
I would assume no. Any other questions for the petitioner at this time?
And have we figured out what the occupancy load at the building plus the existing building is going to be? Because we've kind of blown by that this parcel was previously used by the existing building there, correct?
So this parcel will, the existing building will remain, and this will be an addition to the vacant, to the undeveloped portion of that parcel, the south 2/3 of it.
Okay, so my question was, what is going to be the occupancy load of the addition plus the original building?
I don't have the answer to the number of people required. I can tell you the number of spaces required. This is, so there's 5 operatory chairs, so 5 patients plus staff in the addition, plus what would ever be occupied in the existing home, which we've agreed would not be a restaurant or a retail use.
Oh, well.
Did you mention last time that the staff count was 5 to 6? Or am I making that up?
That's, he has 5 to 6 staff. They're not all there at the same time. Usually I've only seen 3 to 4 at any one time.
They've got the doctor's nook. They've got finance. They've got the business office. They've got another office area in the front, plus 5 seats. So that's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 before you have any patients in there.
That's,
You wouldn't have 10 staff in a clinic that small.
well, I'm talking hygienist plus.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
So
Okay.
With that few chairs, you'd have probably a receptionist, maybe 2 hygienists, a doctor, and a clerical person. So 5. And even if you have like a separate finance person, that they may not be there all the time. So 6 plus 5 chairs, so you're at 11 max. But then you've got the brace bus that would probably knock off 2 of those patients, so 9.
Okay. And then what's going on in the existing?
there's no potential tenant for that at this point in time, but it would be most likely an office use.
How many square feet is it, is the house?
I believe it's 1,300, but I don't have that exact number.
So in the petition, it states that the existing and proposed orthodontic office building would total 6,003 gross square feet. You believe that to be accurate?
Together, yes.
Yep, okay. And then,
So it's 6,000 gross square feet?
correct. And they do math on that that says that equals 15 off-street parking. They, our town.
Town.
They.
So that's 1 per
Sorry.
400 square feet?
Correct.
1 to 200.
1 to 200 would be
The
30.
VBD gets to reduce that amount by 50%.
Okay, so it's a parking load of, it would require, it's a 30-person load. So we've already cut it half to 15. And now we're cutting it down to,
We're not.
I think we're
We're
at
saying that
15.
he'll get 9 off-site and 6 on-site for a total of 15. They're just not all on-site. Now, this does potentially put Cohatch or somebody else in a precarious situation if this gets locked down
All right.
first.
does the 6,000 feet include the second floor?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a big footprint.
And I would point out for the record, Cohatch's variance approval was for space anywhere, parking, to find parking anywhere in the in the area defined as the Zionsville Architectural Review District boundaries as amended from time to time. So Cohatch was given pretty large flexibility on where to find the spaces.
Yeah, but that's because we were trying to preserve a building that's been there. The other question is, once again, your drawings don't match your your floor plan.
In what respect?
Well, you've got inset doors on your elevation and you've got outset doors on your.
Could be, are you talking about the north door to the addition?
And then, has there been any review with any kind of architectural?
Yeah.
Well, we haven't been through architectural review committee yet, which we will go to after this, in addition to plan commission, and where all these issues we plan to address.
For what it's worth, the design didn't get better. It actually got worse from
I'm
last
sorry.
month to this month.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah. So
Even
just-
I knew that.
just saying.
Let's call it a work in progress.
Mr.
Still
Condit,
have a lot of hurdles to jump.
Yes, understood.
Exhibit 6 articulates the parking agreement. I guess I have a concern here. Item 2 says the non-exclusive right to use the 9 parking spaces.
So in it's saying non-exclusive, it isn't, there's no particular space that they're allowed to use. They're just allowed to use those spaces.
It's like they won't have signs in front of them.
But can somebody else,
Non-specific spaces.
I'm making this scenario up. Let's say there's 15 total spots in there. I don't want Mr. Harris to commit more than 15 total spots. You are committing 9, which means Mr. Harris has 6 left. Are we in alignment on that thought?
Correct.
Okay, I'm not sure that's articulated well in this parking agreement. I'm gonna turn to somebody with a law degree on that.
That was my concern when I read it. I want to make sure that we don't have multiple people signing up for parking spaces that they think are theirs or satisfy a requirement here when in fact they may not be.
Well, we're happy to address that if you would like to in the
I mean, it
agreement.
may just be a linguistics issue for the agreement, but I think you need to have exclusive rights to use 9 spaces somewhere within that lot. That you don't have to identify 9 spaces. We're not concerned about that.
That's fine. We'll make our
As long as we're on the same
approval
page.
subject to that
Would you
clarification.
be amendable to having that, our approval, an approval if it went that way, being subject to getting that cleaned up?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the gravel parking lot is also part of that
Correct.
area,
Yes.
correct?
Given the need for off-site spaces, I wouldn't be surprised to see that lot further developed to accommodate more spaces, since it's officially a monetized asset. in the
You might
village business
get
district.
more cars in there if you had some stripes too, so that people, I parked there today and I could have put it sideways or any place I wanted. I mean, there's plenty of space, but it was undisciplined.
Any other questions for the petitioner? One remaining question, and it's not necessarily in our purview, but I just thought it was interesting on the site plan. Are the 2 buildings going to be connected?
The potential to connect them exists, but they will not be, there'll be 2 separate businesses. They will not be a doorway connecting them.
Okay.
This is fishing and I don't like being fished.
Mr. Jones, I think we're agreeing to a structure that is 6,000 square feet.
Correct. We think, we don't know. No, we don't know.
Yeah, you're right.
We don't know what the floor plan is. We don't know what building's connected to what. We don't know the uses, and we're being asked to grant a variance. I disagree with it. And then architecturally, it's nothing. Which, that's kind of our preview is purview, that's all right. But if we're going to approve something in this kind of, and it's parking. We hear it over and over again. And we are infilling a lot without, one, we don't really know what we're infilling it with. All we know is we're granting a parking variance for something.
Yeah.
And we have no control over once we send it down the path.
Yeah, I mean, if I could speak up, yeah, the town has ultimate control over the architecture that exists in the village business district. Perhaps this board does not, but the town does.
Correct, Wayne?
Well, certainly the plan commission will review the architecture to comply with the salient features of the 19th century and the 4-point test. Certainly, this project happens to be seeking funding through or assistance with the project through the architecture review committee. So there's actually an incentive for the town's participation in the design of the architecture through that process.
Any other questions for the petitioner at this time? Seeing none, are there any remonstrators who want to speak for or against this particular petition? Seeing, is anybody online? Do we have anybody left online? Hopefully, yeah, fair enough. Okay, thank you. May we have the staff report, please?
The request before you this evening is for variance to reduce the required amount of off-street parking for Nicholson Orthodontics. This request is generated by the proposed 4,000 square foot addition. We've already gone through the math that results in a requirement for 15 off-street spaces to be provided. The site as presented, the site plan as presented provides 6. So there's a need for finding 9 additional spaces. Again, has been discussed. I would like to clarify that the parking plan that was presented during the Cohatch parking variance request did include both the graveled area and the lot just to the south that was previously discussed. And they showed a finished layout of up to 39 parking spaces if that were fully improved with hardscape and everything. And at that time, Cohatch was speaking about taking 31 of those spaces. It was not committed to. The requirement to Cohatch was to find spaces within the boundaries of the ZARC. So this was one option that they were pursuing. They may be pursuing others. I don't know. They do have to provide evidence of leased spaces meeting that parking requirement before we will issue a certificate of occupancy. Okay. So at this time, Cohatch has not entered into a lease, as far as I know, for any of those spaces, but they were planning, at least what was presented at the time was 31 of those 39.
So this is going to turn into a Cohatch problem, which is fine. Whoever turns in the lease first will be the winner. I like it. In addition, I noticed the staff recommendation is, I feel like the information we presented is different than what the staff had the opportunity to review. Is that correct? I guess what I'm suggesting is if the petitioner could present a parking plan where the additional 9 off-street parking spaces are identified and secured more than 3, the staff may be in position to support this variance. So are you now of the opinion that the staff is supportive of this variance?
Well, I'm going to stay with the information that I have. Okay, so I'm going to remain that we can't support it because we don't know for sure.
Okay.
And if there is a commitment to acquire the 9 spaces there, or approval would be contingent upon that, the staff would be okay? Is that another way of saying what John said?
One thing that was debated among staff was that, okay, the question is, we need to find 9 more spaces for this project. If they are able to present a resolution where they can say, yes, here are our 9 spaces, technically they wouldn't need the variance because their off-street parking would be met.
Yeah.
But because we still have some questions about the lease and about the number of spaces committed out of this one lot, we did not feel comfortable or confident in saying, yes, we support this.
As a group, we've always taken a conservative approach on these matters, and I certainly appreciate that. Okay. Any questions for staff? So it sounds like we're not in love with the architecture, not necessarily our jurisdiction, but there will be an opportunity for that to be addressed. But based on the information we have, it's going to be a 6,000 plus 4,000, so a total of 6,000 square foot building, which obligates them to have 15 parking spaces. They have 6. They have identified 9 more in Exhibit 6. I think we should have a condition that, or ask them to clean up Exhibit 6, specifically point 2. But any other discussion amongst the group? Are we okay in the legal world?
Yeah, I was just making a note that they made a couple of proposed commitments. So I think if you're inclined to approve, it'd be subject to those commitments and subject to, I guess, review and approval of the parking agreement.
Okay, can you document, or Mr. Chad, what were the commitments? Sorry.
Exhibit 5 in your materials, their proposed statement of commitments, one off-street parking spaces would be available to the public certain times of day. They're off-street, they're at site, and 2, be restricted against the restaurant or tavern use without further variance.
Correct. So I think if there was a recommended motion for approval, you could articulate that as the commitments discussed in tonight's meeting. With that, I would entertain a motion.
I move the docket number 2021-19-DSV, a development standard variance for a reduction in the required amount of off-street parking in the urban village business district be approved based on presentation and contingent upon a signed parking agreement for 9 additional spots. That approval also includes the prior commitment of the on-site parking places being available to general public during the specified hours, and that the other portion of the building will not be occupied by retail or restaurant. Did you get them all?
Thank you, Mr. Mundy. Mr. Chad, are you okay with that?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I'm gonna call Ms. Campens on that one. Thank you. Wayne, why don't we do a roll call vote? Just in case.
Certainly. Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mrs. Campens,
Aye.
Mr. Mundy,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf,
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Kite. Mr. Kite, thank you for your patience.
Have a good night.
You as well. We're just getting warmed up. It's 9:39. Let's knock another one out. That brings us to new business on our agenda, which is docket 2021-25-DSV for the property located at 1665 East State Road 32. Will the petitioner please come forward and describe what is in front of us tonight?
Hello, can you hear me?
You can.
Hi, my name is Nicole Myers and I live at 10665 East State Road 32 in Zionsville, and I've only been there a year. I am requesting a variance for a pole barn that is going to exceed the maximum allowed square footage and height. When I moved there, I downsized and didn't realize how much I downsized. Also, since I've lived there, my father passed away, and I have a few collectibles, cars actually, that I would love to keep and store. I have no place to store them. I also have mobility issues, and I have mobility like durable medical equipment that right now is outside of my house because I have no place to store it. My medical equipment really needs to be close to me in like my house garage, my attached garage. So I'm hoping to be able to build the pole barn in the back to have everything else that we need, so that my medical equipment can be in a house closer to me. I don't even have a place to store a lawnmower right now. So I'm paying someone to come mow my yard, and I'd love to be able to have, you know, a place for those kinds of things. The collectibles from my parents who have passed away, Christmas decorations, and I'm a kidney transplant recipient. I was on dialysis for 15 years, and hopefully I will never have to go back on dialysis, but transplants fail all the time. When I was on dialysis, I had a monthly shipment of, because I did it at home, I had a monthly shipment of boxes that would stack to the ceiling and all the way across the podium. So in thinking for the future, again, you know, I know the Lord will keep me safe, but if something comes out of it and I have to go back on dialysis, just thinking about all of the storage that I don't have for anything that I might need, storage that I don't have for things that I need now. And so that's what I'm asking for.
Thank you. You articulated that well. I have a couple quick questions. Your current home is a ranch, correct?
Yes.
And that assists you with your mobility issues that, I mean.
Yes. So
Okay.
when I first moved there was the sidewalk or the driveway you had to step down, and then there was big stepping stones, and then you had to step up on the porch. And before my father passed away, that's the first thing he did. He helped me get a sidewalk that goes straight off of my driveway and like inclines gradually straight onto my porch. So thank God
So,
for that. So
one of the variants, or one of the issues in front of us, is that the accessory structure will exceed the height of the primary structure, but really that's kind of necessary for you. That's because of the hardship of your mobility issues. You couldn't have a two-story home practically.
correct.
Okay, understood. And then about how large is the pole barn you're proposing?
Originally, I proposed a 32 by 40. And then in the worry of having to come back here, again, to ask for more, if something were to come out and I, God forbid, lose my kidney and have to go back on dialysis, need more space for those kinds of storage items. I asked if I could add to the structure if I needed to without coming back for another variance. And that being said, if my contractor tells me that it's cheaper or more cost effective to just do it the bigger structure now, I would love to be able to do that if possible now, instead of adding to it in the future and maybe not having the funds to do so or whatever.
So the structure you're proposing is 70 by 32?
Yes, I would like to.
Okay, thank you. What questions do we have for the petitioner tonight?
You mentioned it was to store vehicles as well?
Yes,
Are
when
they-
my father
are they
passed
tall?
away, I'm sorry.
Are they tall vehicles or?
Well, I have parts of an older truck that will be taller. And then I have a hot rod thing that's a normal size. But I'm thinking more along the lines of storage going up into, because of the cars on one side and then storage for other things to go up.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner?
Do we have any setback requirements that we need to take into consideration?
Yeah, that's gonna be my only question, because there are no dimensions documented on the site plan.
I didn't believe there was any setback issues. Because I don't remember what the setback would be, but I remember looking through that and it meets the setbacks, which is 5 feet.
Just 5 feet off the rear and the side yard.
Correct.
Okay.
Good question. Thank you.
And so now we're up to 2100, well, actually 2240.
It articulates it. It is in the report 2240. Your math is better than mine.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Jones, the proposal that is in front of us does reflect the larger size. Any other questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, are there any remonstrators here to speak for or against this petition? Seeing none, may we have the staff report?
Yeah, so I'll go over this briefly. This is a development standards variance. There's actually two variances that are being requested. As was stated, the size of the new structure will be 2240 square feet, which will exceed the accessory structure will be large more than the primary structure. And then also the height will be taller than the primary. So those are the two requests. Staff is supportive of the variance, and I will make a note, a correction in the last paragraph, right above the staff recommendations. It says 652 square feet. It should be 1612. That'll be the amount of accessory structures that exceed the primary.
Which is articulated further up that page, as you see that you have it. Yep, great, thank you. And in staff's opinion, is this consistent with the use of the area?
Yes, there are similar structures in that immediate area, size and height.
Very good. Any questions for staff? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move that docket number 2021-25-DSV Development Standards Variance to allow accessory structures which, one, exceed the allowable accessory square footage, and two, deviates from the required maximum permissible height associated with accessory structures in the rural low-density single-family residential R1 be approved based on the findings of fact in the staff report.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Legg. Thank you, Mr. Jones. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Good luck with your project.
Thank you for staying a little later for me.
Okay, it's past my bedtime, so let's discuss how we're going to proceed. It's 9:49. We have moved on to new business. We have 4 additional petitions. Unfortunately, I cannot stay here all night. I do have commitments. So how would the group propose? What are alternatives, Wayne?
Certainly, you have a few different choices. One is to waive your rule. Another is to select a special meeting date where you would hear the remainder of your agenda. Certainly, another option would be to continue all the remaining matters that you commence after 10 p.m. To your September date.
Okay. What is on the September agenda? I'm sorry, let me rephrase that question, see if I can do it more articulately. How many petitions are on the September agenda?
3.
There's 3. So relatively light compared to what our volume has been. Group, I'll open this for discussion. I'm certainly willing to move forward for a little while longer, but I don't want to be here all night.
I'm fine to keep going.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of issues that would hold up. This last one was like 12 minutes, and I think we could
speed that up.
Yeah, we can speed that up on these other ones, I think.
I think we may have a larger discussion for the last petition.
Yes, maybe.
I'm of that impression.
Can we get until
Do we want to continue that one?
Are we of the impression that there is any sense of urgency for that last petition?
Petitioner here.
Is that our petitioner?
Certainly call for Veronica.
Yeah, Mr. Would you please come forward? I'm sorry, Todd. Sorry. Yes, understood.
For the record, Tim Oakes, attorney for Altum. There is a hardship in the sense that this is a request for a temporary use. that would last until December 24th. So a 1 month delay is a significant percentage of that time.
Is that a house for Santa Claus or the elves?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Oaks, I am sensitive to that request. I have childcare issues I have to deal with, so I cannot be here terribly late. And I apologize, but our rules, procedures tell us to stop it. So I would be amenable to two things. The group can probably continue on without me. We have a vice president, Mr. Jones.
I can step in if we need to keep.
I will hand over the gavel to you. I'm willing to continue forward for a period of time, but if this conversation gets more robust, or I'm also more than amenable to putting another meeting, a special meeting on the calendar in a next week or the following week. If that's. How does the group
I would,
I'm okay to stay.
yeah, I would continue.
I'm staying.
You're okay.
Let's continue on,
Okay.
and you can leave when you want.
Mr. Chairman. Oh, sweet. Mr. Chad, is that appropriate? I apologize, but I do have personal issues I need to address tonight. So if I,
It happens. Yep, that's
okay,
That's fine.
I would remind the members of our public, mostly a volunteer group. Okay, with that, Mr. Rodman, would you please come forward? Let's discuss docket number 2021-26-DSV for the property located at 40 South 2nd Street.
My name's Todd Rotman, address 320 West Hawthorne Street. I'd like to use my full 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Just kidding. We were here earlier in the year and received approval for our variances. Since that time, we've run into budgetary issues. In order to cut costs, we've removed the basement, we've minimized the size of the house a little bit, and we've moved the detached garage to be attached. In talking with staff, they felt like that was significant enough change that we should represent to you guys to make sure that you think that the variances are still appropriate with the new design.
Mr. Rodman, can you kind of give us the net, what happens with what we approve versus what we have in front of us today?
So our lot coverage is going down by 0.5%. So we're actually covering less ground, and the height of the building has dropped by about 6 inches. The view from the street has not changed at all. The height reduction and the square feet reductions are not visible from the street. And when we attach the garage, in order to not have the structure look bigger from the street, we have offset it about 5 feet 4 inches from the southern side so that the addition is not as visible from the street. And we attached it with a 1-story piece. So it's clearly a separate garage attached to the back of the building.
And did anything change with the setbacks?
We're requesting no changes to the previously approved variances whatsoever.
So at risk of dumbing this down too far, what we're seeing in front of us is a 0.5 reduction of the lot coverage.
Yes.
Any discussion amongst, or sorry, any questions for the petitioner?
Nope.
Are there any remonstrators to speak for or against this particular petition? Do we have any left on? No one's left. Understood. Thank you, John. With that, maybe we have the staff report.
Yes. The staff is supportive of this request, and like the petitioner stated, there's a significant change in the site plan, and that's why they're coming back, and the setbacks are all the same. The only difference is the lot coverage is decreasing by 0.5%.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move that docket number 2021-26-DSV Development Standards Variance in order to provide for an addition and remodel of a single-family home and accessory use, which one exceeds the required lot coverage of 35%, increase to 42.8%, and deviates from the required side and aggregate side yard setbacks as illustrated on the site plan attached to this report in the R-V for the property located at 40 South 2nd Street be approved as filed based on the findings of fact and substantial compliance with the submitted site plan and concept elevations.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mundy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries with a 5-0 vote. Thank you, Mr. Rotman, for your patience.
Great. As a chairman of the Town of Zionsville Board myself, I appreciate your service and I appreciate your time in staying for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is docket number 2021-27-DSV for the property located at 1937 North 750 East.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Samantha Kerr. I live at 1937 North 750 East. We purchased our home back in mid-March and we are we're requesting a zoning variance to add a 1,350 square foot pole barn to our lot. I don't know how much detail you want me to give.
Well, if so your request is to permit an accessory structure which causes a square footage of the accessory structure to exceed the primary structure. So let's talk about your lot. It's about 3 acres.
It's a little shy of 3 acres. Yes.
Okay. And if we look at our staff report, it looks like your home is about 1,786 square feet.
Correct.
Seems accurate to you.
Mhm.
And what is the size of the structure you're proposing?
It'll be a 45 by 30 pole barn, 1 story. It's a
1
single
story?
Mhm.
And your home is 2 stories?
No, it's 1 story.
Okay. What questions do we have for the petitioner?
It looks like her adjacent property owners have a very equal setup, so I think none.
Any other questions or comments? Are there any members of the public who would like to speak for or against this particular petition? May we have the staff report?
Yes, so this is a development standards variance to permit a new accessory structure, which would then exceed the accessory square footage over the primary. She's requesting a 1,350 square foot barn, which would be over the primary structure by 618 square feet. The staff is supportive of this request.
Thank you. And as I noted, as Mr. Lake noted earlier, it looks very consistent with the area.
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions for staff? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll do one. I move the docket number 2021-27-DSV Development Standards Variance to allow for the accessory structures which exceeds the allowable accessory square footage of the primary structure in the Rural General Agricultural District, AG, be approved based on the findings and based upon the staff report as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second to that motion? Second. I had Mr. Mundy on that one. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries 5-0. Ms. Kerr, thank you for your patience and good luck with your project.
Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Our time per petition is going way down. Congratulations, everyone. Not sure if that's a metric we're using. Next item on our agenda is docket number 2021-28-DSV for the property located at 1466 West Oak Street, the Ford Center Commercial Building. Can you test your audio for us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, we can hear you wonderfully. Thank you. Would you please state your name and address for the record and describe what's in front of us?
Yes, my name is Mark Demerly at 6500 Westfield Boulevard. I'm here in presenting on behalf of COSIN and COSIN on their proposed building at their existing integrated shopping center that's at the Ford Center. What we are requesting is the fact that a proposed 2,000 square foot new building located in the northeast corner of the existing integrated center. The variance that we are requesting is for foundation planning. We are in the B2 general business district, which requires a 6-foot foundation landscape planning next to the building. And due to the restrictions of the lot that we can build on due to agreements with the adjacent Walgreens, et cetera, we are providing 6 foot to the south, not just to the next to the building, but slightly to the south. And we are providing additional landscaping to both the north and to the east But we are allowing for a drive lane that would be for a potential future tenant looking at a bakery or some other type of retail space within this, not a restaurant, but a retail. We've worked with staff. They've been great, and I know that we have support, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Demerly. As I look at this proposal, I would notice in the findings of fact that if you were not to get this proposal, essentially what happens is the building would become essentially too narrow for any sort of practical use. Is that correct?
That is correct. We've reduced the size already, and it's really because of an agreement that is with Walgreens in regards to the moving in of shipping of products and stuff like that. The boundary that's shown on what was presented, you guys have on your reports, is the limitation of what we can build on, and especially to allow for, we have a restriction on the east side anyhow in regards to setback. And so, yeah, we are at the minimum size, and we're slightly less than 2,000 square feet. We're looking at really just a single family, a single tenant in the space.
Mr. Demerly, is the proposed structure, will it be consistent with the look and feel of the area?
Yes, it will. In fact, I feel like in regard to, it will be, we've worked with staff in regards to presenting materials and stuff like that. I think it will be as or not better than other products in the area.
Thank you. What other questions do we have for the petitioner's representative tonight? Are there any members of our public who would like to speak for or against this particular petition? Feels like a silly question at this particular point. If not, may we have the staff report?
Thank you. As mentioned by Mr. Demerly, this variance is to provide variance for foundation plantings around a proposed building. Specifically, if you look at the building, the landscape plan that's provided, sheet L101, the variance is specifically for the western facade. The B2 district in which this is located has specific requirements for the width of the foundation plantings and the amount of foundation plantings that have to go in that area. And they do not have enough room on this site to accommodate that depth and amount of plantings. They are proposing plantings in that area, just not enough. And that is what the variance is for. The question may be raised as to, okay, why don't we have foundation plantings along the east side of the building? And that is because there is a proposed drive-through on that area. And if there is a drive-through, that facade does not require foundation plantings. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Understood. Good explanation. Any questions for staff?
No, I think that you're not going to see that side of the building because it's going to be protected from the building kind of in front of it anyway. There are some plantings, and I think the other plantings around the building more than make up for it.
Any other comments about this particular petition? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I move that docket number 2021-28-DSB be in a development standards variance for the reduction of the 6-foot required foundation plantings and the required point value along the west side of the building as depicted on the landscape plan Exhibit 4, filed in docket number 2021-28-DSB, be approved as filed based upon the findings of fact and as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you,
Mr. Demerly.
I thank you for continuing on the meeting tonight and also allowing me to be virtual. Greatly appreciated.
Certainly. Prior to moving forward, I'm going to linger around. I've got approval from the boss. Do we need a motion to amend our minutes right now to continue a hearing after 10 p.m. or to start a hearing after 10 p.m. or are we okay? At our discretion?
You're right. Your rules just give you the discretion to decide not to keep going, so you're fine.
Okay. Perfect. Which would bring us to docket number 202029 DSV for the property located at 795 South US 421. Will the petitioner's representative please come forward and state your name and address?
Yes, good evening and thank you for hearing this matter. Much appreciated. Tim Oakes, attorney at Ice Miller. Offices at 1 American Square Street, 2900 Indianapolis, Indiana, 46282-0200. Here representing Dana Altums and Altums. I guess it just closed, but Altums Garden Center. Altums is as you probably know, is a long time business in Zionsville area. They were at the site over on Michigan Road, just north of 106th for over 20 years. They haven't owned that property for a decade. And the owners of that property, the Zionsville family, have decided not to renew the lease. So they, in essence, have been booted off. So they are surprised by that and in the process of trying to find permanent space. They would like to very much remain in Zionsville. This is an interim or temporary solution to just serve some of its loyal customers in the Zionsville area that purchase their plants and materials, especially around the holidays in the fall, their mums from Altum. So this is a temporary site. This site was found, it fits well. It is zoned, it's at the corner of Taylor and US 421, the south east corner. It is owned rural general industrial I2, which frankly allows significantly more intense uses than certainly this temporary use that's being proposed. If you look at Exhibit 2 in your staff report, it has a pretty good aerial of the site. There is an existing fenced-in gravel area on the site close to Taylor that would be used, that would house the entire operation with a couple of exceptions. That's where the sales and material would be stored, which is behind a fence. The gate would be shut at night while it was not in operations. The restrooms in the existing event facility would be open and used. And the parking for the existing event facility would be used for this parking. So there's more than ample parking for this temporary use. The hours are listed in the staff report and those will be abided by. So they're 10 to 6 p.m. Tuesday through Thursday and only till 4 p.m. on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So the impact on surrounding areas and properties we think is very, very minimal. Again, this use will end on 12/24 of this year. The two variants being requested is there is some sale of some non-agricultural items such as vases, ornamental wreaths that aren't organic in nature, household knickknacks. That will absolutely be less than 10%. We think more than less than 5% of total sales. Multiple structures. There's photos of the tents. Those exist on the site now. They exist. They're owned by Altum, so they would simply be moved here. We think they're attractive. They're open structures, and then just a shed where people would pay when they check out. And because it's more than one simple shack, that's the other variant. So we did meet with neighbors in the area. Dana met with the gentleman actually right across Taylor from the site. He wasn't entirely happy with this. We tried to address as many questions as he had. I don't know if he has submitted any remonstrance, but we do agree with the content of the staff report, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Thank you, Mr. Oakes. Any questions for the petitioner's representative?
It will close December 31st, 2021, and it will not reopen.
December 24th.
24th, yeah.
24th.
The only way it reopens is there is she is looking for a permanent site, and if this did become the permanent site, then there'll be a whole different set of approvals, including probably a rezoning. of all or portion of the property. But as a temporary use, this will be it.
Your client doesn't own the property.
No.
Correct. Okay, understood.
And the entrance, is it off of Taylor or is it still going to be off of 421?
It's off of Taylor.
Yeah, it's currently off Taylor.
Yeah, it's currently off of Taylor.
What were the nature of the concerns of the neighbor?
I think we may find out.
The nature of the concerns of the neighbor really related to what's going on, what he claims is going on at the site now, which we actually don't have a lot of knowledge of, but he claimed it was a gathering site for young people that were doing inappropriate things, especially in the area where our setup would occur. We indicated to them that hopefully this would help it out because we're going to put a gate up, keep it locked, and be using the area. It's not going to be available for teenagers as a hangout or anything of that sort. He was a little bit concerned about traffic, and he was, which we indicated, look, it's a temporary use. It's not a big use. We don't think traffic is a big issue. That his home is right along US 421, and the traffic on US 421 is going to be significantly more than anything at this site. And then finally, it was concerned about lights, but given our hours, closing on 3 days at 4 and 3 days at 6 p.m., we didn't think that was an issue. But if it really is an issue for him, we told him we'd give him a tree and plant it for him in front of one of his windows that he says he has the issue at. So we thought we addressed all his questions. Quite frankly, my sense was he doesn't want anything in the area, period. And
Isn't the landfill just south of this site?
it is, yes, it is.
Okay.
And there wouldn't be any more,
Exactly.
there wouldn't be any more traffic with this than there was seasonally with its previous use.
We don't believe so, no.
I mean, it'd be probably far less because they used to park all back into the field to the east during, spring or fall season.
Mr. Oakes, as I look at the two requests, the non-agricultural items, we can debate, interesting one for me, but most of these items that you're proposing that are non-agricultural are kind of aligned with agricultural items. It's a vase to go with the plant or something along those lines, or decorations to go.
I would agree with you. We'd rather be safe than sorry.
Okay.
In terms of what we're selling there.
We appreciate a conservative approach on these things. And then I also would be aligned with that the structures seem appropriate. So any other questions for the petitioner? Okay. Are there any members of our public who wish to speak for or against this particular petition? Please come forward, state your name and address.
My name's Glenn Craig.
I'm sorry, what was your last name?
Glenn Craig.
Right. Thank you, sir.
I live at 9994 Taylor Avenue. I'm the property across from there. My main concern is the entrance to it is directly across from where I park. And, the address to that place is 421. I always felt that the entrance to that business should be on 421 and not affect where I park.
The entrance though is remaining as it is today. They're not changing it, correct?
I don't know. I think they should.
You would suggest that the entrance would be
On 421.
south of Taylor Road on 421.
Yes. I mean, the old residence that was there when they tore it down to put this business in was on 421.
So Wayne, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my guess is having a high volume entrance that close to Taylor Road, two curb cuts that close together is probably not an ideal thing. So getting people off of 421 onto Taylor first probably helps that.
It's certainly I'm not aware of Indiana Department of Transportation being consulted as US 421 as a state highway, but I would just knowing the state standards, what you're saying is, I believe, true. It would be very challenging.
So we have a condition that exists that isn't ideal. We're not changing it, making it worse. it's staying as is, so I don't know that that's.
Well,
much.
then you still have the visual part of the whole parking lot that's there. They've never done nothing. I mean, it's just a parking lot between my property, the road, and their property. They put trees down 421 when they put the property in, which really it's misjudgment there because they put them right underneath the power line. So those are going to be eventually trimmed and what, you know, how Duke does.
Mr. Gray,
But they've never done any visual thing to separate their property to where if I'm standing outside, I see everything that goes on.
are you on the corner of 421 and Taylor, or are you one lot in?
No, I'm on the corner.
You're on the corner of, okay. And your address is Taylor?
Yes, it's Taylor Avenue.
Okay. I can see from the exhibit here that you are, it looks like your driveway.
I have two driveways, but I have an old, well, actually, it's a parking lot. It was an old 3-car garage that fell in during the blizzard of 76. Then they wouldn't let me rebuild because it's too close to the road then. So, you know, I just got a pad there to park on.
Okay, understood. And your concerns are, I think I heard like visual screening on the property as well as you feel like the entrance should be off of Michigan Road.
Right.
Okay.
Because there's traffic that goes in and out of there, you know, you're always, they're looking.
Okay. Understood. Mr. Oakes, could you come back up, please, for a moment? Thank you, Mr. Craig.
Sure.
And also, thank you for your patience. Whew. So the remonstrator has some concerns. I think they're going to be a challenge, but could you try to, and you spoke to them, could you try to address them?
Sure. There is no proposed change to access to and from the property as a whole. It's going to remain the same. So this use is a temporary use where no permanent structures are being added. So to modify access, to put it onto US 421 for this temporary use would simply make the use impossible because of the cost. It would take longer to build the access than the use would actually be open and operating. I think that is an issue that should be taken up with the owner of the event center. And certainly I'm more than happy to pass that along. But as it relates to this temporary use, that's just simply not possible or practical.
You think the owner of the event center would allow you to plant 2 trees in the island between the 2 entrances?
We think that's possible and would be happy to do that.
Mr. Lake, good suggestion. I'm not sure we've solved all the problems, but I think we've made a gesture.
I think
Thank you.
we've solved one of the only problems we can reasonably solve.
Yeah, Mr. Oakes, I'm going to ask you a hard question, but do you have any idea what the process would be to get a curb cut on 421?
Yes, I do.
Very good. Could you briefly articulate that? I'd love to stay a little longer tonight.
Yeah, there's a driveway manual that the Indiana Department of Transportation puts out, and it contains the requirements for all access points that are on highways, the jurisdiction of which fall within NDOT's requirements. That book you have to comply with, so you have to submit a very detailed design. This would be a commercial permit. There's 3 classes of commercial permits. Based on the use and volume of traffic, you have to design an entranceway that meets all of the requirements for A-cell, D-cell, and separation from other access points and other turns like to Taylor Avenue. You have to meet all those requirements in order for NDOT to issue the permit. The design process, submission to NDOT, then approval would probably take a minimum of 4 months, and then the construction couldn't start till the spring. And that would be extraordinarily expensive and probably take somewhere around 3 or 4 months.
In your view, you expressed that that's not really practical for this temporary use, which is going to terminate on December 24th. I guess what I'm driving towards maybe is that it's really a problem with the landowner and not,
I think it is a problem with the landowner.
or a problem for the landowner, I should say.
Yes, it is a problem for the landowner. Yes.
I mean, my guess is you would have to have that drive be actually south of the building.
Yeah.
Based on distance from Taylor. So
Yeah.
there's a whole
Given the design
site
speed,
configuration redo that would have to happen. to
yeah, given the
accommodate
design
something
speed
like
on
that.
Michigan Road, you're correct.
And honestly, they may not even allow one there, period. NDOT may say you've got 2 suitable entrances.
Thank you, Mr. Oaks.
You're welcome.
May we have the staff report?
Yes, sir. I'll be brief. Simply stated, a single roadside stand selling agricultural items would be permitted here. However, because they are looking to sell a few things other than agricultural items, and that they would be using multiple structures, the temporary shade structures that have already been described, those are the items that require the variances. The only other additional information I would like to add is that this is on the grounds of the Finley Creek Event Center, and the petitioner has noted that they would not be operating while Finley Creek would be having any other events. So it would not be a double use on the property at the same time.
So it shouldn't be any more intense.
Correct. So I'd be glad to answer any additional questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
I do have one more thing to volunteer as well.
Certainly.
As Mr. Jones would recall from a petition on 775 East, the Channel Farm Stand. The farm stands in particular in Indiana are sensitive to what's being mentioned in terms of what is for sale. In order to remain a Class 2 structure, which would be very important in the future, the state of Indiana looks for a farm stand to sell 90% of its product as the farm product. So the state of Indiana actually limits the amount of vases, baskets, things that aren't ag related, in order to maintain that Class 2 versus Class 1 limitation. So that is your metric in terms of the intensity that you would see products being sold here. Certainly they're welcome to go through the state of Indiana CDR process and obtain that level of permissions for a Class 1 structure, but ideally that is likely not what they're going to be doing. And that's okay. Not making a judgment call here tonight, just describing that on the record.
Understood. Any other questions for staff? I think we heard a commitment if we move forward with a favorable motion to add a couple landscaping trees to the median. I don't know what to call it.
If amenable by the owner of the property.
Right. Understood. With that, I would entertain a motion.
I move that docket 2021-29-DSV, a development standards variance to permit a temporary roadside produce stand to sell non-agricultural items and permit additional structures on the site to support the operations of the temporary roadside stand, to limit the duration of the temporary roadside stand as being open to the public beginning no earlier than September 1, 2021, and ending no later than December 24th, 2021, operating between those dates and within the hours of 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Tuesday through Thursday, and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Friday through Sunday, being in the rural general industrial zoning district I2 and within the rural Michigan road overlay, be approved as filed based on the findings of fact and as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Prior to adjourning, Mr. Chad, please correct me where I go wrong. I believe we're going to sign findings of facts prior to adjourning. Right. And we are not going to sign the negative findings of facts today because those need to be prepared. So I think we're just going to pass them down the line.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think they shall are there. Yeah.
And there's
The ones that are, the new ones? No, they're the new
Yeah.
ones. I signed all the old ones.
And I haven't signed anything. I think we're supposed to sign them while we're still in the meeting.
Oh, I've already signed.
Okay.
No, these are the new
Oh,
ones.
these are the ones from this evening.
Yeah, these are the ones.
Oh,
from tonight.
this evening.
Larry's gonna pass them down, so they're coming your way.
And also on your agenda is a earmark for an electronic media meeting policy. We will simply just discuss that at a different evening.
Thank you, Wade. Okay, I'm gonna. Yeah.
Obviously, you were never in purchase.
No. Am I going too slow?
One signature, especially I'm a doctor.
We have projects for HUD where we have to sign 200 pages. So I'm just, at the end, my signature is completely unrecognizable. They're like,
Fellow
it's all-
board members, thank you. Good work tonight. IT staff, thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
That one and that one. We got two. All right. You got a ton of recycling tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know, is that?
You know, that's my personal recycling pile.
Yeah, I've just made a mess. Okay, so I think those are all from tonight. Were there some legacy ones that I needed to sign or?
They're on the back there.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, with no further items on our agenda, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Put some dates in there.
I've got a pile here.